Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into Thursday's edition of Hoopsville. I'm your host, Dave McHugh, and we welcome you to the show. Division III basketball all the time. We appreciate the support of D3Hoops.com. And, of course, the WBCA NAPC studios is where you find us here on this Thursday evening. The segment of the show's theme is the whole idea of taking the turn. A lot of conferences have either finished up conference action or for the first round, or about to finish up the first round of conference action, and as a result, they're taking the turn into the second round of things. And so that is certainly the topic that we're focusing on: teams that are rising to the top of conference play, and what else is going on. Of course, it's a Thursday show. It means we'll primarily focus on the the East, the Mid-Atlantic, the Great Lakes, and the West regions. We also have the WBCA Center Court. That is what we've got ahead. A couple of things, though, lots to talk about tonight. We have a full plate of guests, and by my timing, I can already figure out we're probably going to be into overtime. For you Hoopsville fans out there, we haven't done a lot of that this year, but we're certainly going to dive into that tonight. If you have questions for us, I would say for a lot of our guests, a lot of them are unfortunately pre-taped tonight, but a couple of them are live. If you have questions, you can tweet us at D3Hoopsville or using the hashtag Hoopsville. You can email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. And also join us on Facebook, facebook.com / Hoopsville. Of course, we are live streaming the simulcast there of our show, and so you can take advantage of that. You can also, if you want, tweet or message us on our YouTube thing if you happen to be directly on the YouTube. We have our chat room there. Certainly that is another option for you as well. So, another crazy day of basketball in Division III. On the women's side, surprisingly enough, not a lot of upsets. As Gordon Mann said to me and to all of us really behind the scenes earlier today, or it was last night, there's a chance the top 25 goes undefeated this week in women's basketball. That's great for the voters. That's great for the top 25. We don't have any disruption. On the men's side, it was another bloody Wednesday, for lack of a better description. Whitewater lost to Stevens Point. Believe it or not, Stevens Point, who was 5-6 entering WIAC play, I think, or 6-5, is now undefeated in the conference and on top of the conference. It is a wide-open WIAC. We said it would be wide open. I expect we'll probably see a number of teams coming out of this conference. Stevens Point was not the team I expected to see up there. I think Stevens Point's a good team. It's always a well-coached team, good defensive unit. But what I saw in Vegas didn't blow me away as being a conference-dominating unit. That said, they're going to have to take the turn eventually here and play more conference games, and the teams are going to start figuring each other out. But everybody's beating everybody. So Whitewater lost to Stevens Point. Now they got lacrosse coming up on Saturday. Oshkosh lost to Platteville and have Eau Claire coming up this weekend. MIT took its second loss of the season to Springfield. Springfield, who's been pretty good, hasn't really played well against the top. Well, they beat MIT 68-65. River Falls lost to Lacrosse. Are you following the WIAC here? Everybody's beating everybody. John Carroll lost to Baldwin Wallace by 9. Franklin and Marshall lost to Dickinson. So now go back in Franklin and Marshall. They have lost to Muhlenberg and Dickinson this week, in the past week, and beat Swarthmore. Of course, this is the same Dickinson team that lost to Washington College in double overtime on Sunday at the Palestra. So that's the F&M team lost to Dickinson. So it's just craziness in the Centennial to some degree as well. Ohio Wesleyan, I don't know what's happening. I'm confused. It's almost like since we saw them in Vegas, they have come off the rails a little bit. Lost to Wittenberg. I'm not overly surprised they lost to Wittenberg, but it wasn't close. 21 points. Wittenberg hung a 93 spot on them. I'm starting to lose faith in the Battling Bishops. In the receiving votes category, Wartburg seems to be coming off the rails. They lost to Nebraska Wesleyan 99-60. Adrian took its first loss in conference play. Of course, they were playing above themselves to begin with. Lost to Olivet 65-62. Juniata lost again in conference, this time to Susquehanna. Keene State lost to Eastern Connecticut. Eastern Connecticut ranked higher, but another loss for a receiving vote category in Keene State. And Bethel lost to St. Thomas. So craziness on the men's side. Again, women's side, very calm. But on the men's side, absolute craziness. We'll talk more about that throughout the show. We also have other things to talk about. Some great articles today, or really in the last couple of days, on D3Hoops.com. Wonderful article on Marymount women's basketball. Wonderful article today posted talking about Claire Marburger, the All-American from Luther, and her battle with clinical depression. It is an outstanding article, a must-read article in my point of view. Also a great article posted about Hobart, though I don't think it's on our front page. It will be eventually. So wonderful stories. Get ahead and check them out. Guests tonight, we will quickly mention as we start getting ready to get into the show. Bobby Hurley, the head coach of the Stevens men's basketball team, will be joining us shortly. Chris Huffman from the number 9 DePaul women's basketball team will be joining us. Then we'll talk to Polly Thomason, the Texas-Dallas women's coach. She's a member of the WBCA Center Court segment. She's also a member of the WBCA board. She's also on the national committee for regional and national rankings and selections and all that stuff. A very busy woman. We will talk to her about the team and even about the ASC and her changing perspective of the ASC in Texas on a large level. We'll also talk to Matt Logie from the 7th-ranked Whitworth Pirates, and then Ashley Rogers from Marymount women's basketball will join us. That's all ahead. But the NCAA Convention is going on as we speak. And this is something the last couple of years, excuse me, that you've noticed that we've gone to. Couldn't make it happen this year, kicking ourselves. Indianapolis is outstanding and would love to be there, and a bunch of our friends are certainly there. But no chance to go this year. There is some basketball legislation at the table, though. One of the items is whether to extend the beginning of the season by a week. In other words, start the season earlier, starting November 8th instead of November 15th. Excuse me. The caveat to that being, like we have with the 15th right now, if the 8th falls on a Sunday or a Monday, they can start on a Friday or a Saturday. Actually, I think even if it falls on a Saturday, they can start on the previous Friday. So the season could start as early as November 6th or even 5th, I believe. We'll double check. However, lot to discuss. Will this even pass is the big question. Well, joining us on the City of Salem Hoopsville hotline from Indianapolis at the convention is the Assistant Commissioner of the Colonial States Athletic Conference, the CSAC, our good friend of the show. It is James Wagner. Sir, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks, Dave, for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. First, let's get to this topic of starting the season earlier. We should point out that if they do this, if it's passed, we're not going to start practices sooner. We will cut into practice time to some degree by a week, so October 15th will still be our start. But you've gotten a chance at the convention to talk with people. I think there has even been a commissioners meeting already. What's the sense of whether this is something that will pass or not pass?
Well, we had our commissioners meeting, Dave, this morning. What we do in our commissioners meeting is we talk about the potential legislation that is on the docket for the vote. For those of you that do know the convention, the Division III business session is Saturday morning at 8 o'clock. So there are 9 proposals this year, one of them being the basketball start date. And as of right now, the straw poll this morning, again, it's just a straw poll. It can change in 24 hours. This looks like that this will pass. Again, from what the discussion that we had, it seems like most conferences are in favor of it. There were some conferences that have abstained, that they have discussed that the majority, if not all the conferences, will have their meetings tomorrow in the afternoon after the issues forum, which is in the morning, which will, again, we'll discuss all 9 legislative items. But for right now, from what I've been told and what from the polls of the room here, looks like that is going to pass and be in effect.
Well, it's interesting because there's a couple conferences like the NESCAC and recently the Centennial who don't allow practices to start till later in the year. Have you gotten any sense from like a NESCAC, for example, if they're for or against this in the sense of how much this will disrupt the schedule on their end?
I haven't talked to the NESCAC per se, but of course with the Centennial, of course being the Centennial for the last, couple of 8 years I was in that conference. Again, if this passes, then you will see in the summer when conferences have their retreats, maybe they discuss how they flex their basketball schedule out. The background story on this, Dave, is that this will allow certain conferences that have like maxed out basketball schedules to have one more conference game in that fall session. So that kind of relieves the schedule a little bit, where if you have a lot of travel, you can punch one conference game back into the fall. That way you're not overloaded as you come back from winter break.
Yeah, I think that's the big key here is we see more and more conferences, and you certainly know it as an assistant commissioner of a conference, where the schedules have started to drift into the fall more and more. The bigger conferences certainly have less and less room. The Centennial Conference has started the Tuesday before Thanksgiving on several occasions. And it feels like the out-of-conference schedule is now getting tighter and tighter to fit in, whether it's before conference play, to at least get a couple of games warmed up before the season, before you get to really important games, or around exam period, and trying to slot them in to certain areas while also taking the time off that the NCAA requires, that some worry about with the ECAC. This is really a chance to try and free things up and not play so many games in a tight window. Is that right?
That is correct. That allows flexibility for your schedule to crack it back one extra week and slide it on a conference game back one more back into the fall semester. That way you're not pressuring student athletes to play 3-game weeks coming into the winter. Again, as I said earlier, it looks like this is going to pass, and what is going to happen is when it passes, you will have every conference in America or Division III in their spring meeting discuss what kind of changes we want to make to the basketball schedule. I will put my conference in an example, is that my concern right now, and I think the concern of every other conference in this country, is if we start on November 8th, how does that affect fall championships? Because a lot of our fall championships, if not all of them, are on that weekend before basketball. Yeah. So now you can have a scenario where, and I will just use an example, I'll use one of my schools. Let's say Centenary University hosts soccer and field hockey and maybe volleyball. Now they've got 4 championships. And what do they have a men's basketball game scheduled against Stockton University that day?
Right.
What does that do to the staff? What does that do to, the institution that hosting 4 championships, the flexibility of that game? Again, it's a non-conference game, but that becomes your opener. What does that do for tip-off tournaments? What does that do with, tip-off tournaments are usually the first weekend, is not the second weekend. Okay, now you crank it back to November 8th. You're going to have a tip-off tournament where you may have a team that's playing for a championship, and then you have a home game the following week when your team's in the NCAA tournament. So there is a lot that's going to be on the table if this does pass. Again, the straw poll was that it was going to pass. That could change within 24 hours by the time we get to the business session. And for those of you who followed along last year, you do know that the period of reconsideration is gone. So if this does die on the floor, there is no bringing this back until next year.
Yeah, interesting. I want to get to the reconciliation in a moment, but the big key I found interesting there was, or with all of this is, it could change. All the reasons you just brought up are reasons that schools could then get into the conversation, whether it be tomorrow at conference meetings or on Friday at the business session, and say, listen, this is getting too much into crossover season. This is getting too complicated. Granted, other divisions already have a bigger crossover, and D1 has just approved to move their season start about 5 days sooner.
Right.
It's now going to start the Tuesday before the second Friday of the year, so 10 days or roughly 10 days into November. You are obviously, as a conference commissioner, you can understand this to some degree, but at the same time, there's nothing that limits this to saying to a conference or to schools that they can't also put their own limitations in place. You could still, as a conference, say, listen, this may have passed, but as a conference, we don't like it. We're not going to start a date. Or a school says, yeah, we've got X, Y, and Z going on. You can play, but you better be on the road.
Exactly. We could have each conference will have to make that decision, where, if this does pass, and like I said, I think it's going to, what you want to do as a conference. For us, and I can't speak for all 12 of my schools,
right,
is that if it does pass, we will let them know that, okay, starting in 18-19, this is our championship weekend. If you host a championship, like you said, you better be on the road. The championship will take the priority in your gym. So if you have a game scheduled for 1 o'clock, guess what? It's getting moved to Sunday or it's getting moved to Monday. Right. So that's the main argument right now, is that you're butting up against championship. You already have it in the winter with lacrosse. Now, men's lacrosse is not really that much of a big deal because it starts usually the last weekend of basketball, so you're able to work your way around that. But now you're creeping into a championship period where you have more where you don't have a lot of flexibility, especially when you have a fall sport that plays in a gym. Like in the spring, lacrosse isn't playing in the gym.
Right.
But now in the fall, you have volleyball that can potentially host a game. Yep. So there's going to be a lot to discuss at this past. Again, tomorrow morning is the issues forum,
right,
where this will come up, and the schools that the conferences that sponsored it will say their piece, and then people will say, well, this is why it's not good, and then we go forward on Saturday and we talk about it, and then it's voted upon.
We should also point out that there is a men's volleyball in the spring, but it's on a much smaller scale than women's volleyball, so it doesn't have the same conflict. You mentioned reconciliation, something I certainly have gotten used to, but it is something that's changed. For those who don't know, bills that are at least relatively close, within a certain margin, get to be reconsidered if they can drum up enough support to do it, and a revote takes place. They've gotten rid of that, and what's the reasoning behind that, Wags?
I think one of the reasons, of course, this is my second year, and that was gotten rid of last year, is one of the things that does happen is when that session is over, when all 9, like let's say there's 9, 8 or 9 amendments are voted upon.
Right.
When they're voted upon, a majority, not let's say a majority, but a minority of people will leave because they've got early flights to catch back to the airport.
Significant number, yeah.
Significant number. So what has happened in the past is that when it comes up for reconsideration, 1/3 of the room is gone.
Yeah.
So there is no, and I've had it where the schools have, they vote for all 9 and they say, we've got a 12:20 flight to get back to Philadelphia. We're leaving. And now this, we get through our bill voting, and if we're done by 10 o'clock, people can go to the airport and catch their flights.
Yeah.
With reconsideration, you run the risk of 1/3 of the room being gone, and something that may not have gotten passed may now get passed because the majority of people who voted against it are gone.
Yeah, true. Fascinating way of working things out. We could go into the weeds on that, too. I've got other thoughts, but not worth it tonight. We'll look forward to seeing how this transpires. We'll keep you up to date on Twitter. I know Wags and some other people I have there will be keeping us up to date on if this changes, but we'll see how this progresses. It could start November 8th, starting next year. Hey, while I've got you here, you guys at the CSAC just announced, what is it, the second annual or third annual?
No, this is the first. This is the first time we're doing it. We're doing a challenge with the city of New York.
It's the first time. Okay.
Yeah,
I remember you guys doing something in the past. Maybe I'm just confusing myself. But
Right.
you're doing a battle here with the CUNY conference, the CUNYAK, where basically some of the CUNYAK and some of the CSAC will be playing each other on a date that was predetermined. Give us a little sense here of this battle. This is you were used to maybe seeing some of this in the beginning of the year. That's not official. This is really an official thing late in the year.
Yes, exactly. So last year during our end-of-the-year coaches meeting, John Barron came to me, the coach of Glen and Mercy, and said, we would like to do this with the City of New York office, and talk to John Alisi, who is the coach at Baruch College in New York. And we, gave me the background of what they wanted to do. I brought it forth to the athletic directors in the summer in our spring retreat. They said it was okay. So what we did is we told all of our schools to not schedule one non-conference game. We were going to do it on February 3rd. And throughout the year, we kept an eye on what each conference was doing. Now, they have 9 and we have 10. This year, we excluded Park Summit because they last year finished in 10th place, so they were not part of this. So what we did is we got closer to the year, to maximize the SOS strength of schedule, we are both in the Atlantic region. What we did is we took the overall records to maximize the SOS 1 through 9. So as of January 15th, we actually had a conference game, Keystone and Rosemont that day, which Coach Barney, who once again is doing a great job at Rosemont, as I always say, beat Keystone that night, and we did our standings 1 through 9, sorted by overall record. I went through to the City of New York conference and got them 1 through 9 for their record. So we have a matchup of 9 schools that are going to play an opponent that they might have played during the year, but they didn't schedule. There are no repeat matchups. So our top game, our number 1 seed, is Glen and Mercy, coached by John Barron. We'll be playing Lehman at Neiman on February 3rd at 1 o'clock. So we are hosting games at Newman, Rosemont, Immaculata, Cairn, and Centenary because the City of New York College cannot host, so they'll come to Hackettstown, New Jersey. And then schools 1, 3, 5, and 7, which is Newman, Marywood, and I have another one in there, Keystone, will be going to the City of New York to play a game. And this is just a chance for a student athlete experience, kind of like a bracket buster kind of thing. They're going to have this opponent now 2 weeks out to prepare. So a team that they may not have played during the year, they'll get to play. But, we've got Gwen Mercy, who's having a great year at this Cabrini. And they'll be playing Lehman and Staten Island. So 2 good matches there. Newman will be playing Hunter. So that will help the SOS. And, again, it's an in-region game because we're playing a team out of the Atlantic region. So kudos to both Johns and, of course, Zach at the CUNY, who have been working with hand in hand, and my boss, A.J. Mulligan, who got the 80s support behind it, and the 80s were all for it. They said no problem. We voted on it in March and in May. It was all good that they were allowed to do this, and we got it together. It's a good partnership. I like working with Zach at the City of New York Conference. He's a great guy. I met him actually at the convention last year when we voted to do this, and him and I have been talking hand in hand about some other things related to our conference and how we can help each other in the Atlantic region. So this is going to be a great thing. We're also going to take some donations for Coaches versus Cancer. It's actually the weekend before. Our weekend is the weekend after the actual Coaches versus Cancer weekend. But to come to the end of the games in New York, and the games here in Pennsylvania, we're going to ask for a donation for Coaches versus Cancer, and it's going to be a good time. I'm actually going up to Lehman to watch our Griffins play up there, and it's going to be a fun time.
Very cool. A little New York versus Philly kind of flavor to it, though it's not a perfect fit, but it's kind of got that flair to it with the CSAC having so many Philly schools. So. Cool idea. Looking forward to seeing you. That's February 3rd. If you want more information, you can go to the csacsports.org website where they've got a link for it. Hey, Wags, thanks so much for your time, sir. Appreciate the update from the convention as well. As always, we give our guests the final word. Any final thoughts for those out there?
Yeah, a couple of things. One, Dave, I'd like to congratulate Julie from MIT. Her last name, I don't want to mispronounce it. She was awarded the Pat Summit Award today. And, great staff at MIT. She's done a great job with that program, and she's got a good staff, and I wanted to congratulate her on that. I met her last year actually at the Issues Forum, and I'm good friends with her at DIII, Ken Johnson, and what she has done at MIT and what she's done for collegiate athletics, she's well deserving of this award. So I would like to congratulate her. And MIT, of course, the men's basketball team has done a great job this year, and you don't want to sleep on MIT. They've done very, very well. I'd like to see that matchup against New Jersey City. I think that would be a really good game, but MIT has done really well. And, of course, I'll talk about quickly, as you reported with our conference losing 5 members at the end of the year. The conference has done great things this year with our 12 members, and we are going to be okay. We've got some potential members coming in, and the CSAC is going to be good. And, it's been a great year. Our 12 members have worked together to have, some good championships, and they're going to continue to do that throughout the winter and spring. But, it's been a great year for the CSAC, and the CSAC will continue on, and we'll do great things. But, we're excited for this challenge of the City of New York Conference, and it's going to be a good time.
Very good, sir. Yep, we'll look forward to seeing how the CSAC evolves, and we're really looking forward to this matchup. Have fun the rest of your time in Indy, and we'll look forward to talking to you down the road. I'm sure we'll chat with you about the Atlantic region.
Absolutely, Dave. Thank you for the time. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
buddy. Take care. James Wagner, Assistant Commissioner of the CSAC, once again joining us again. It looks like this schedule for the men's basketball moving forward a week, so starting the season a week earlier, though not affecting practice time. We will still start no earlier than October 15th. Looks like that may pass. Again, a lot can change in 24 hours when they even have just the meeting itself to talk about issues, the business meeting that takes place on Friday mornings at the convention, and it could still change by the time we get to Saturday morning when they vote, but we'll see, and we'll keep track of it. You can follow us on Twitter as we keep track of it as well. And, of course, the CSAC CUNYAK challenge coming up as well. Going to take a break. When we come back, we'll get to our guests. We're going to start off with Stevens. Speaking of the Atlantic region, we will, of course, they're really the East region, but they're located somewhat in the Atlantic region. We'll talk to Stevens men's basketball about their resurgent year, back in the conversation, especially atop the Empire 8. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and ABC studios. More Hoopsville after this.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III.
I did receive academic scholarships. Just being involved on campus, being a leader, all those things combined kind of get me recognized. It's a great experience for me.
My name is Marcus Walker. I was All-State, won a state championship, a high school All-American, and played college and pro ball. I played because I love the game. I grind to be the best. I sweat because I put in work. I'm strong because I believe. When I want to bring it before game time, I come to the house that college basketball built, the CBE. No matter your skill, take it to another level. Elevate your game right here at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center.
It's on us to stop sexual assault
in any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all.
It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us. all of us,
to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody, from the WBCA NABC studios and presented by D3Hoops.com. Let's get to our guests, and we'll start off in the East region. We're going to start in the Empire 8. Bobby Hurley's got his team with the Stevens Ducks back in the conversation. It wasn't that long ago that we were talking about this team on a national level. They were 22-6 back in 2012-2013 season. They were an 18-22 win season for a number of years before they seemed to disappear. They are back, but it seems to have a different flavor to it. We talked to Coach Bobby Hurley earlier today about his team and what he's seeing from his Duck squad. Now joining us on the City of Salem Hoopsville Hotline, head coach of Stevens, it's Bobby Hurley. Thanks, Coach, for taking the time.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here, Dave.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. You and I discussed off air briefly, and we kind of talked about it in the early part. Kind of snuck past me. We haven't talked to you guys in a little while, and to be honest, kind of disappeared from the national conversation. You always had been in the East conversation, but disappeared from the national conversation to some degree. You're reading the tea leaves, it looks like you're kind of reemerging in that conversation. If we're not talking about Stevens and the regional rankings, should they have come out, now, I'd be pretty surprised.
Yeah, we're excited where we are, at this point in the season. We did have some tough years the last couple years. Last year we were 19-8 and now sitting at 12-3. So we're excited where we are, in this year, for our program.
Yeah, the bounce back last year at 19-8, kind of the statement back of, hey, remember us after a couple of subpar seasons. What's been the turnaround for you guys? Again, we were kind of used to a run there of about 5 or 6 seasons where it was 18+ wins a season, top of the E8 in national conversations, in NCAA tournament conversations, and then you went through that 12-13, 12-14 seasons. What's been the catalyst to bring the program back?
I think for us, it's been our depth. The last couple of years, we've been able to, play multiple guys and not really depend solely on 1 or 2 guys. In this year's team, we're able to play 12, 13 guys. So I think the last 2 years, we've been able to play, so many more guys and just have that depth that we didn't have those years before.
Depth certainly is key. A lot of teams will say that. Your depth seems to be underclassmen. So you're making this turn, but you only are starting 1 senior and 2 more are coming off the bench. This is a not very young team, but it seems to be a young-orientated team to some degree. This is really what the Stevens' future looks like too. It's more than just this year. Is what I'm trying to get at.
Yes, I mean we get great contributions from pretty much everybody, our seniors included. But overall, it's still a pretty young group with majority of our minutes being our sophomores and juniors. But we still get great leadership, and minutes from those 3 seniors that we do have.
Spencer Cook, the sophomore, leading the way at 18 points a game. He's your only guy in double figures. Also pulling down about 4 rebounds a game, handing out nearly 2 assists a game. Frank Amari at 9 points. Jason Winnick at 8 points. Kevin Florio at 7.5, along with Michael Zagnorski. One thing that jumps out to me is while you're putting up 82 points a game, outside of Cook, there isn't anybody who seems to have a dominating offensive stat line.
No, we try to, mix it up. And, for a lot of our games, we've had different, leading scores, which, for us is what we want. Hopefully it makes it harder for other coaches to scout us. And, we have different guys that can show up, pretty much every night. So I think that helps with our, our depth of our team this year.
When you look at what you've done so far with this squad and the depth you have, and again, you're talking, double-figure games. You've got, 12, 13 guys who played in double-figure games. Most of that's 13 of 15. Is that an easier thing to work with as a coach, that you've got depth, you can always go to the bench, or is that harder because you've got to keep more guys kind of involved?
It's a little bit of both. There's some games where I wish the games were longer. It seems like, we aren't able to get enough guys enough minutes. So it's a challenge, on both ends. But our guys have been great. They've really bought in. And where we really put our effort and energies on the defensive end and being able to play 12, 13 guys and have them buy into, we're going to, play pretty hard defense and give our maximum effort on that end. It's really helped us out.
Yeah, 13 guys. It turns out you're playing in 13 of the 15 games, and 11 of those 13 are getting double-digit minutes. They're playing at least a quarter of the game. So you're rotating quite a bit. I'm sure that is a statistician and a public address announcer's love of to see you rotating guys constantly. I have a feeling I kind of remember from when we've talked in the past, that's not necessarily a new thing, but is it evolved or has it changed in any way?
For us, just being able to get to 10, 11, 12, even 13 guys, we've been able to probably play 8, 9, 10, minutes, but maybe those 8, 9, and 10 only get 10 to 15 minutes where, which we've really extended that to 12, 13 guys, which again, it can be a challenge at times. And, I think it was tough for our guys early to understand the style of play we're going to play this year. And, you play 20 minutes one game, you may play 15 the next. And, it was a challenge for them, but, they've, like I said, they've really bought in. And, I think it's helped us. And hopefully, in the next few weeks, our bodies will be in good condition and we won't be as banged up if guys were playing, 30, 35 minutes a game.
Are you getting what you want accomplished defensively? You're averaging 72 points a game. Teams are shooting 40% from the floor, 30% from the arc. Your foul shooting defense is outstanding, 63.5%. You're out rebounding your opponents by 4.5. But again, some of those numbers seem high. Is the defense accomplishing what you want to accomplish?
Yes, right now we're where we want to be. I think that's kind of where we struggled maybe the last few years is defensively. We weren't as great as we were, the years where we were pretty good. Those years we were kind of trying to outscore teams, where this year we're just trying to get stops and, let our offense kind of figure itself out. Just really trying to focus again on that defensive end because, guys going for 4 or 5 minutes, they can give great energy and know they're going to get a breather and the next guy is going to come in and play, 4 or 5 minutes of great defense. So it's really helped us, get back to that defensive mindset.
For a lot of guys, it's checking the ego at the door then.
Yes, I mean, we've got great kids. I'm lucky to coach, the kids that we have. Again, they've really bought in and, they really cheer for each other. And it's exciting to see, on a daily basis.
So this season, you said had trouble buying in. You started losing 3 of your first 5. Lost to New Jersey City by 4. Of course, a team that's getting a lot of national attention out of the NJAC. Beat Suffolk in overtime. Then you had Williams, and unfortunately at their place, Williams showed you guys the door by 18. You beat FDU Florham, and then you lost to Rutgers Newark. That's a bit of a rough start. But what have you been able to build out of that? What have you learned out of that has progressed now to what is about a 13-game winning streak?
Well, I think it's our guys just adjusting to the way we were going to play this year. And I think those first few games, them not understanding if I'm going to play 25 minutes a game, am I going to play 15? So really I think it was the adjustment period, those first few weeks. And the last few weeks we figured it out and guys have understood and just really figured out how the style was going to work for us.
And I shouldn't say 13 straight. You don't even have that many wins on the season.
Nope.
It is 10 straight. You're working your way towards that number. Of course, it hasn't been easy. Conference play has been challenging to some degree. Of course, Catholic, you got to win past them and some other teams. But your last time out against Hartwick, apparently you almost played a whole third half of basketball, 106-104 in trip overtime. Of course, that game at Hartwick, which is a hard place to get to and play, especially from your vantage point. But that's also a good barometer game for you guys. That's one that can check yourselves a little bit and understand you're going to have a battle every night, but at the same time shows you can get past a team.
Yeah, I think, our last 2 games have really come down to the wire. And, I've been really pleased with our guys to be able to find ways to win in close games. And we were trailed against Sage 2 nights prior to the Hartwick game. And, guys just stayed with it, and luckily we came out with a win. And kind of the same with Hartwick. We'd go up 4, they'd come down and tie it up. It was just really back and forth for pretty much 55 minutes. So just really excited for our guys to be able to find a way and kind of stay with it. And luckily we escaped with a victory.
Of course, we're not done with conference play here. You got Nazareth coming up this weekend and St. John Fisher at home. You then have the game against Sage on the road. You'll close out the month against Hartwick. So you have an interesting dynamic here where you'll play Sage and Hartwick almost immediately after you play them. It's almost the conference kind of flips to some degree, almost like the UAA. You won't play Nazareth and St. John Fisher immediately, but you kind of have a mirror image of your previous run through the conference, meaning games against Utica will come at the end, even though you played them early on. Is that hard to get the guys focused? I mean, hey, remember this team, this one's easy. But then when you get to the Utica game, it goes, so remember we played Utica a while ago.
Yeah, I think when it comes to conference games, everybody remembers everything. So I don't know if guys will forget anything, down the road, whether it's next week or the week after. We're just trying to take it game by game. I think every game is going to be difficult. Our league is pretty strong, and the effort that every team, comes out and plays with, is terrific. And I think all of our teams are well coached. So there's no really gimme games in our conference. So you have to be able to, come to play pretty much every night.
You talk about the conference. A lot of eyes on St. John Fisher to start the season. They had obviously the coaching change, but coming off of a really solid season the year before, really a bunch of solid seasons, kind of representing the Empire 8. But this year they're 8-6, 3-2, a good team who just hasn't put it together yet. But you find yourselves on top of the conference by a game over Nazareth, 2 in the win column. Alfred's right behind at 4-2. Utica's lurking with St. John Fisher at 3-2 in the conference. It feels like a little bit of a different Empire 8 than I'm used to seeing. We're seeing some names up there that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, I just think that goes to the depth of our conference. I think it's probably too early to tell, at this point. But like I said earlier, it's not easy every night, and I think the depth of our conference has improved, and each game is a challenge. So who knows really how it's going to shake out in these next 3-4 weeks. It'll be interesting to see who positions themselves for the top 4.
Sage enters the conference too at somewhat the last minute this season. How much did that throw a monkey wrench into everything, including what you had already set up for non-conference play? Well, for us, it might be the closest conference team, so
True.
That actually helps us just for our travel considerations. Fair point.
But again, we're going to play pretty much anybody, so it really didn't change much of anything for our scheduling or opponents. It just gives us a closer conference opponent. You didn't have games that you had to go punt because you now picked up 2 conference games? No, just because of losing Ithaca. So
sure.
It all kind of balanced out.
All right. Yeah. I just sometimes coaches try and get ahead of it, then all of a sudden they're behind it, and some coaches who were behind it lucked out because it worked out. So I was just kind of curious.
Yeah, we were safe in that aspect.
Sure. So what's the message to the team, as it were? You've got a whole mess of games still to play. Some teams don't have a lot. You guys still have a significant chunk of games. You've only played 15. And so technically you've got 9 or 10 games left here before you even get into conference action. So you're about to enter what is basically a grind. How do you keep the guys fresh? How do you keep them focused? And what's the message to them?
Well, I think it's, again, conference play is difficult, and every game's a challenge, and we're going to take it one game at a time. And, hopefully the way we play, guys are excited, because we're going to play a lot of guys, and as long as they give great effort, great energy, and really focus on the defensive end, I think we have a chance to compete, pretty much every night. And home court, you mentioned being one of the furthest teams outside the Empire 8's footprint, as it were, is going to be important. The next 2 are at home. A pretty even balance between home games and away. I think you got 1 extra home than you do away in the rest of this run here. You want to protect home court, I'm sure. That's kind of the easiest way to get to locking up this conference. Yes, we're excited, especially for this weekend to be playing at home, because we haven't played a ton of home games. Most of our non-conference games were on the road. So, it's exciting to be back, playing at home. And actually school's in session, so
there you go.
There'll be a little more students. So all that excitement playing. But, wherever the game is, hopefully our guys are going to be excited to play and, bring great energy and effort. That's pretty much all we, ask for our guys.
Well, look forward to seeing how this closes out, including a fun and exciting Empire 8 race, and then see where you guys get slotted in the region in a few weeks as well. Coach, appreciate you taking the time to talk about the Ducks. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
Again, just thanks for having me, and we appreciate everything, D3Hoops.com and your show, Hoopsville, does for Division III basketball and all of our student athletes. So, thanks to you guys.
Well, thank you, Coach. Appreciate the kind words. Enjoy the rest of the way, including the games this weekend, and we'll look forward to talking to you down the road. Maybe not.
Excellent.
Maybe in a less time than 3 years. How's that sound?
Yes.
Perfect. Coach, take care. We'll talk soon. He is Bobby Hurley, head coach of Stevens. Again, team against Nazareth and St. John Fisher. They are 12-3, 6-0 in conference play, but a lot to play for still to come. Empire 8 heating up. It's going to be an interesting race. Again, we've watched St. John Fisher the last few years. You've got them in the mix. You've got others in the mix that haven't necessarily been in the mix. Empire 8 is going to be a fun one to watch this season. Keep an eye on that in the East region. Going to take another break. When we come back, we'll switch to the Great Lakes region and talk to one of the winningest programs since the mid-1990s. I kid you not. They are synonymous with winning, though they only have one championship. We'll talk to Chris Huffman, head coach of the DePaul women's basketball team. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com for the WBCA and ABC studios.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentor's Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that, a lot more.
Sure, the game is important. But as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics. And in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
This is why we love sports. It's in the way they play, free from the pressures and all the money talk. Playing for simply the love of the game, where everyone has a shot at their definition of success on and off the field. This is what we love about sports, and what we can still love about college sports.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. We're on this Thursday edition, calling the show Taking the Turn, talking about turning the corner in the conference races, as it were. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com, or join us on Facebook at Facebook.com/Hoopsville. All easy ways you can interact with us. We hope you will take full advantage of them. Going to switch into women's basketball now, talk to a team that's certainly synonymous with winning. A mind-blowing stat that I read today. Since the beginning of 1995-96, the Tigers are 555-92 for an 860 winning percentage. That's the best in Division III, period. They actually passed Wash U in that category this year. DePaul women's basketball has always won. Whether they've always gotten to the top is debatable, but they're consistent year after year after year. They are going to win. They're going to play well, and we're probably going to have Chris Huffman on the show. So lo and behold, and shocking to absolutely nobody, we have Chris Huffman on the show. And joining us on the City of Salem Hoopsville Hotline, it is the head coach of the DePaul Tigers, Chris Huffman. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville. How are you?
Not bad. How are you doing?
I'm not bad myself. Not bad myself. You got to be pretty thrilled with how your team has once again started off 16-1 on the season. Your one loss coming to, ironically, Wash U. But since then, pretty much rolled through. You've beaten the likes of Williams, Worcester. You've beaten some other solid teams like Rose Holman in a low-scoring affair, Stevens Point, which is always a good battle. You got past Ohio Wesleyan at the beginning of January. You got them coming up. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But another great start to the season.
Well, and we certainly will take it. And I didn't think we'd be sitting here at 16-1. We have this blend of old and new that we're trying to keep pushing it and get better. And so they have responded. So I'm really proud of them. I think we're a good team and not a great team, but they're ready on game day and they play hard.
And I think that's what the difference is, Coach, isn't it? That if you may not have a great team, and not all the great teams win, to be blunt, sometimes it is the good teams that just put it together in the right way. Which is more fun to coach? And I know it's a loaded question. The good teams that seem to excel and maybe rise above expectations, or the great teams that what's going to happen?
Oh, gosh, I always feel like game day's an adventure. I'm never really sure what's going to happen, Okay. So I guess it's always the mystery that I'm ready to see at 40 minutes.
Well, if it's an adventure, Coach, I don't want to see your blood pressure.
Right, exactly.
This is a program. This is going to get old. Last year, 27-3. Year before, 22-7. 2014-15 was 26-3. You had back-to-back 30-win seasons, including the national championship in 2013 at 34-0. I remember watching that game on hand. It was spectacular to win that championship. 27-2 the year before that. 25-4, 26-4, 22-6, 28-4, 31-3. And we were talking about consistent winning from this program. You're in your 25th year. You've been winning since you got there. I know it doesn't get old, but how do you keep it? How do you keep it at that level? I mean, that's got to be hard to do when you're constantly rolling over the roster.
Well, you really never know what you're going to get year to year. And I think some of the fundamentals that we preach day in and day out from the moment they walk in the door, defense, rebounding, take care of the basketball, hit your free throws, lends itself to some consistent basketball. It doesn't always mean you're going to win the game, but I think you can be in a lot of games if you're good in those areas. And that's what we strive to do day in and day out is be really good in those areas. And so I've got some young women and coaching staff that we've really bought into kind of that message and that preparation. And it's knock on wood, it's been pretty consistent for us.
Yeah, it's been consistent might be the understatement. Consistency has been synonymous, and that's kind of what this all gets at. Again, you have the national championship, and I know you'd love to have more, but you're currently 7th in free throw percentage, you're 8th in rebounding, you're 7th in turnovers. You have 4 players in double figures. There's a lot you're doing right this year. What's been the secret this season?
Well, we've got a group that we can put on the floor that we're in some ways hard to guard because we can score in a lot of different places. I think we're still trying to find ourselves defensively a little bit, which is that's probably usually our strength. So we're a little bit behind where we'd like to be. But I think the upperclassmen, bringing the young ones along, we've got some freshmen that are on the floor making a difference for us, and they're blending in really, really nicely. So I always think that leadership on the floor make a big difference when you're bringing in those young ones to be there on game day.
When you tackle this team and say to them, okay, here's what we need to do and get ready for a game. Is this a tough love team where you got to give it to them with a little bit of tough love, or is this a team that you can kind of massage and manage and maybe be a little more gentle with?
They don't mind the challenge, and so I really do enjoy coaching this group because they want to try to be great. They want to try to get better every day, and as cliche as that sounds, they really that's one of their goals that they've set forward. So we can get after them pretty good as a coaching staff and continue to set the bar high and be demanding and tell them that possession wasn't good enough. And then you always know at those times when you need to back off. But right now, this team they're pretty driven, they're pretty hungry. and each individual, they really are striving to be a little bit better each day. So, kind of a coach's dream right now to coach this group. So it doesn't happen this way all the time, that's for sure.
Well, of course, it doesn't happen all the time. And again, we just rattled off all those 20-plus win seasons that you had. But you're right, 16-1 at this point. You're 8-0 in the conference. There's a level of clicking along. Your only loss is a 2-point loss to Wash U. What happened in that game? What did you learn from that game?
Well, I thought we were kind of sputtering offensively before that game, and I felt like we finally perhaps played some team offense. So that was good to see in that WashU game. I thought our rebounding was steady, and I thought we were a little bit better defensively because we had really been struggling. So I think that was a game that maybe they learned themselves that, hey, we can play, and we have a chance to get better here this year. We have a chance to be a good team. So I think the light bulb in many ways went off, even with that loss. They realized that the challenges are in front of them and that maybe we can match those challenges.
As crazy as it sounds, you played Rose-Hulman the game before that, the day before that, the event taking place at your place. 55-49 was the outcome. Rose-Hulman is one of the more stingy defenses out there in the country, and they have been for a few years. How much did that game, in a sense, maybe take you out of sync for a WashU game? And we talk about the system teams and how you got to play this crazy offense sometimes to go against them, and it might take a team a couple games to get out of it. I'm thinking, does it happen in reverse when you play a team that will grind you, that you get into the next game the next day and you're kind of not ready to go back to quote-unquote normal basketball?
I think you're right. I think that can happen, and I'm not sure. It seems like about a year ago that we played those games. But, Rose-Hulman, you're right. He does such a wonderful job of great team defense, and they have size inside, and they've got the depth. So I really am super impressed with his system and his team. And it's quite different than the next day where it's, more baseline to baseline, a little open floor. So they were two different tales that weekend for sure.
Looking through the rest of the schedule, I'm going to get to the conference in a bit. Non-conference-wise, a really good win in Florida against Williams. You had a really strong win against Stevens Point after the break. I think that was at home as well. You beat them by 12, and you also beat John Carroll. You've got to be happy with what you've done in the non-conference because you have set yourself up with a resume, not counting your conference side of things, that is really strong and could really position yourself well when it comes to March.
Well, you hope you get to March, and it's one of those things you talk to your team about. We're not guaranteed tomorrow, and that's about it. But I do think that it was a good non-conference schedule. We saw lots of different systems. We've gone against the zone, we've gone against the press, we've gone against size. And so from that standpoint, I really liked it because it challenged us in so many different ways. Another great team we played on the floor was Oneonta, but they were outstanding with the matchup zone. So it's been fun to have to go against all these different styles of play and make those adjustments on game day, or at least leading into game day.
Another crazy thing about your schedule is you've played 4 occasions where you've basically played at a tournament or back-to-back. You started the season with Wisconsin, Lutheran, and Luther in back-to-back games on the 17th and 18th. A week later, Thanksgiving weekend, you played Rose-Hulman and WashU in back-to-back games. And then we mentioned the games at St. Petersburg before Christmas against Williams and Oneonta. And then after Christmas, before New Year's, you played Stevens Point and John Carroll. That's 4 separate occasions. Now, I realize that may not have been by design necessarily, but was there any purpose to that plan?
We've done it. We've done it that way for a while. And I think you've got the student-athlete experience where you're not wanting to miss class. And,
yeah.
We have a little bit of hard time finding those midweek games in our area. And part of it is you want to try to get ready for your conference tournament. You're going to have to play back-to-back. So I always think that's an okay way for us to schedule our games. And I think the third thing is it kind of gives you some team bonding when you get to go and spend some time together on a weekend. So I like it for many ways. I know some coaches try to avoid it at all costs. I think it helps us prepare for hopefully that conference tournament if we're lucky enough to get on the national tournament.
Looking at your conference schedule so far, I don't see a lot of close games. The closest I've seen is Kenyon got you within 6, back on the 6th, appropriately enough. You won 64-58 at your place. I think Oberlin might be the other closest one at 13. You seem to be well in control yet again of the NCAC conference to some degree. How hard is it from now on, if you are in control of the conference the way these scores are playing out, to keep the team focused and not get distracted by the fact that these opponents maybe aren't giving you the challenge they need at this time of the season to keep them fresh?
Well, and would say just the opposite. I feel like every game has been a game.
Okay.
It really have. When we talked today about, a 20-point win could be a 7-possession basketball game.
Sure.
So on paper it might look like a large margin, but as a coach, it was just a couple mistakes here or another made basket here and a missed basket, and the whole thing is a different ball game. So we've talked a lot about that as a team, but I feel like every game's been a grind for us. I don't think we've got this team where we are outscoring people and have this margin of victory. They seem to be pretty tough grind-out games to me.
Let's talk about the team. You have 4 seniors on this squad, but it's a lot of underclassmen, as you said, who are leading the way. Scoring-wise, it's Maya Howard, a junior. 13.8 points a game. Claire Keefe, a freshman, 12.6. Sydney Kopp, a sophomore, 12.1. And then we get to the first senior in Emily Buddy at 10.8. Rebounding, it's a senior in Melinda Frankie at 6.5, and another senior in Kylie Morris. But then we go back to Howard, a junior, who's your assist category leader at 4.1. So you've got, as you said at the beginning, this mix of veteran and youth that are kind of driving this team to some degree. That can certainly be a wonderful thing to play off of, I would assume, and I assume they're playing off each other pretty well.
They have. Maya has the ball in her hands, and she's a junior for us, and it does a nice job of leading our team. And I love our seniors who have been vocal, and they kind of are maybe more blue-collar action where they're great defenders and great rebounders and maybe aren't scoring all the points. And what we do, we've got this nice mixture of old and new and forwards and guards. And I'm proud of how they've come together, how they share the basketball. It's not about them. It really is about us. And it's been really, really good. You never know what it's going to look like when you start the season.
Yeah.
It's a little scary thinking you're going to rely on some young freshmen perhaps to play some major roles, but they've really stepped up to the challenge.
Come on, 4 players in double figures, and you're averaging 67 points a game. So, you've got 45 points coming from 4 players of the 67 you're scoring. That can be really great because you've got some great weapons. Does it also concern you, though, that, if you need some depth, at least statistically, on paper to us, there doesn't seem to be that scoring depth, or you got a different point of that?
No, I think you're spot on with that. I think we'd love to be 10 deep, and we're not quite there. I think we can bring in a couple of defensive players, but our offense does take a dip.
Yeah.
Once we make those substitutions. So we're still working on that part of the game. I think we have some more first-year students who are on that roster who can make a difference, and they're just just a step behind where we need them to be right now, and they're working their tails off to see if they can kind of get that comfort zone for us and step on the court and make a difference. Let
me challenge you with this. What does this team need to work on to keep improving?
I think our defense, we're still working pretty hard at that. We talked about there's a lot of gears you can choose to use when you go out there and do a drill or you play a possession, and we've got to find that highest gear at all times. So defensively is an area that I think we can still make some great strides in, and we can't let any of the areas drop off, that's for sure. And, boy, if we could improve our depth, that would help us immediately.
Going to ask you a bit of a personal question here. Have you thought about your legacy? The note that jumps out of me from Bill, and it's one I've known that you just forget. You're 587 and 118 in 25 years. That's an .830 winning percentage. Entering the year, it's improved because you've gone 16-1, by the way. That's ranked 6th among active coaches at all NCAA levels with at least 10 years of experience, and 9th all-time among coaches, whether they're active or retired, with at least 10 years of experience. You're up in a very rarefied air in women's basketball. Has that ever occurred to you? Does it hit you in any way?
It's kind of, I haven't looked at those numbers or thought about it. You only think, I've just been doing this for a long time. Nobody.
Yeah, but at a really good, successful rate, Coach.
Well, I do feel fortunate. DePaul University attracts such a great person and a great student athlete, and I have a wonderful staff. So it's been a ton of fun. And again, credit to my team this year. I don't know that we should be 16-1, but we are. And all the credit goes to them and their drive and kind of their vision for where they want to go.
You got a really nice stretch ahead, 3 games at home. And of the finale, you've got 5 of 8 at home. Home is a good place to be, and I assume you want to take full advantage of that and wrap this conference up and make sure you've got the driver's seat when it comes to conference tournament.
Boy, yeah, we still have so much left to play. So we're just starting the second time through the conference, and I think second time through is such a grind. Everyone's got each other figured out, and playing the same coaches year in and year out. It's so difficult when you get to conference play. But I do like that 5 of those will be at home. They won't be easy ones. But this conference could still go so many different directions. So we've got to keep getting better, keep going possession by possession, and see if we can be the last team standing.
Yep, I can understand entirely. Coach, I appreciate you taking the time and joining us, talking about your Tigers squad. A great start, 16-1. You've done 16-1 or 17-0 6 of the last 7 years. You may not expect it. I think we have expected it. Maybe we're spoiled. Enjoy the rest of the season. I know we'll be talking to you down the road. Good luck to the squad. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuning in?
Well, I think my typical thing is to thank everyone in Division III. I just think it's a great game. It's a great level to be at, and you do that work. You're highlighting Division III basketball, and I appreciate everything that you do, and all those coaches out there that could have gone to another level but have stayed to make our game great at this level. Thank you.
Yeah, that last part is very good. Very good point. Coach, thank you so much. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Chris Huffman joining us from DePaul. Another little note, of course, their men's head coach is Bill Fenlon. If you don't know the question, do you foul or not foul leading by 3, it came up on Sunday when we were talking at the Palestra, and it came up another time recently to me. DePaul's got 2 really good coaches if you want to talk X's and O's. Chris Huffman on the women's side, certainly showing she is one of the best in Division III and all of women's basketball. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk to another great women's basketball coach. Polly Thomason joins us in the WBCA Center Court. She'll talk about why her life is now incredibly busy, all because she's giving back to the game. You listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and ABC studios. More Hoopsville after this.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I know how powerful words can be. The term gay doesn't mean stupid, lame, or less than.
So I pledge to speak up if I hear the term gay used in a derogatory way or any other homophobic terms.
If you can play in Division III.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and my teammates unconditionally accepted me as part of their family. So now I pledge to do the same for others. If you can play in Division III.
I used to never really talk, ever. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. It helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com.
Division III allows you to give yourself to other things.
Having that free time allows me to pursue the things that I want to pursue.
Division III athletics affords students the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport.
It allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you are enjoying our Thursday edition of the show. Appreciate our guests so far. Want to keep things moving as we got a lot to talk about. I had a wonderful conversation with Polly Thomason earlier today as part of our WBCA Center Court segment. We talked about why her life is now so busy giving back to the game. Not only does she have a busy schedule, but already with her team and a successful team schedule, but of course, she also now is giving back in multiple ways, whether with the WBCA, the NCAA, or otherwise. And she's keeping it all in the family. Long conversation, but well worth it. Welcome to the WBCA Center Court. Thanks our partners at the Women's Basketball Coaches Association for this. Coach Thompson joined me earlier. So now joining us in the WBCA Center Court and on the City of Salem, Hoopsville hotline, it's the head coach of Texas Dallas. It is Polly Thomason. Coach, thanks for taking the time.
Hey there. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you considering this. We get to dive deep with some coaches, and looking forward to doing so here.
All right, awesome.
Let's start off with a couple of things. First off, as we mentioned, 12-2 for the team, 6-1 in conference. Certainly having a good season. I think kind of being synonymous with a Texas Dallas squad is always in the conversation. Obviously, still a lot to play, but you got to be thrilled with how the team's doing so far.
Yeah, I'm really thrilled, to be honest. I think this was not expected of the season. We lost a lot of seniors from last year. So I'm just really happy with the way our new players and our returners who are very inexperienced have stepped up and competed for us. So, yeah, we're very excited with where we're at. I keep telling them we still have a long way to go. Yeah. Our school, our conference is real tough. So we're just going to take it one game at a time and day by day and just get better every day. That's our goal. So, but I've been pleased with the way they've responded and how they've allowed me to coach them.
On a big game the other day, played East Texas Baptist, who is technically a half game ahead of you because they've got one more win in conference right now. You got the victory over them, so that's certainly significant. Certainly not over. You have a return trip with East Texas Baptist at the end of the season, but it'll be at home. So you almost have a leg up right now on your side of the ASC.
Oh, I mean, you could say it, I guess, as the standings go, but I think our league is just so tough. I mean, you can't say that we do. I just think every game we play is going to be hard and hard fought. But yeah, I was just really pleased with the way we played. I mean, we played at ETBU and just played a hard-fought game. I think it was just a defensive battle on both ends of the floor, and we were lucky enough to come out with that W, in my opinion. I think ETBU had opportunities to win it, and we just took care of the ball down the stretch and knocked down enough free throws. Not as many as we should have, but enough to win.
Enough to win. I hear you. Was that a game where they didn't hit any down the end and still came out with a victory?
Sometimes it feels like that for us.
Yeah, I can understand that. Lost to Emory in the second game of the season, but more importantly, a loss to Mary Hardin Baylor back in early December. You won't see them the rest of the way because they're in the other division. That's kind of a significant game as things are moving forward.
Yeah, I think it will. I think especially when we start moving into regional standings and probably rankings, that's probably going to be something that we get compared to. We get head-to-head with them, and that's okay. I mean, at the end of the day, I really feel whoever wins our conference tournament is probably going to be the only team out of our league. It's just the way it's been in the past. So that's really our focus. And I think every game we play is a learning experience. Losing to Emory, I think, was a wake-up call for our girls, especially where we have a lot of new players who didn't understand that, we've been successful in the past, so teams are coming at us with their A game, and we weren't prepared for that at all at Emory. And I think the same thing at Mary Hardin Baylor. It was our first conference road game. They've got a great facility. They've got a great team. And we just didn't play our best game, and it's just we had to learn through those moments. And, we'll take a loss as long as we're learning through the end of it. And I definitely think our team has done that.
We'll talk more about the rankings in a minute, but I want to mention one other thing. The news is out, at least. I don't think it's been officially announced by the school, but it's out that Texas Tyler will be applying for Division II, and there's a lot of steps in between now and whether they become Division II. We're not going to assume anything. However, should they move on, your thoughts on their departure from the conference?
Well, I think it's a big loss for our conference with how successful they've been across the board. They've won a softball national championship. I know other sports, golf, cross country, have done really well on a national level. A couple years ago, women's basketball went to Elite Eight. So I think from that standpoint, it's going to be a really tough loss for our league because they've gone out there and competed for us and been successful. So it'll be tough for our league to recover, to have that. I think a continued success that they've had, and that's what we need. I think our league needs that more than anything. So, from that standpoint, that's going to hurt us. From a competitive standpoint, same thing. I mean, that's our number one rival. We're going to miss playing them twice a year, and every game we play against them has been tough, and it's an exciting game. In fact, we're playing them tonight, so it's going to be a hurt for us for sure.
And we should point out we're talking to Coach ahead of time because they are playing Texas Tyler tonight. You should then lobby D2 to reject them. I'm just saying.
I might not go that far.
I know. I do realize. And obviously you would get possibly one more year to play them if they were accepted anyway. So not the end yet, but certainly we see an end coming. You talked about rankings prior. We should point out one of the reasons you're on the WBCA Center Court segment is that you have decided to take on national responsibilities in many ways, but we'll start with the fact you're on the national committee this year, representing the South region as its chair. You know, that's certain. I know you've had RAC experience, jumping into the national games, a different aspect of things. What intrigued you about the idea of doing that, and why thus did you say yes?
I have a great mentor in Deb Hunter, and she's always pushing me to give back to the game and to just be involved more than with my own team. And every year that it's been open, she's encouraged me to apply. And I did, I think it was 2 years ago, and I wasn't chosen, and then it opened up this summer and I was chosen. And, it's just more experience. I think the first time I was on the RAC, just as the representative from my conference, I learned a lot as far as the process goes and who I need to be scheduling, who our league needs to be scheduling, just to give my team and our league a more of an opportunity to get in at large if we don't get the AQ. So it's been eye-opening in that regard. And now being on, the chair of the South and being part of the national committee, it's even more eye-opening as far as what goes into choosing, the top 64 teams in the country. It's not easy considering we're the largest division, and a lot of really good teams get left out of it every year. So I haven't had a national call yet where we discuss teams, so I'm looking forward to that. But just the experience I've had already, I've been really excited and pumped for the future for the rest of my role.
Luckily, you don't have to pick all 64 teams,
right.
But you do have to bracket them, and I know that will be interesting work.
Yeah.
That said, you may not be involved if your team's in the tournament. Of course,
True.
As we also talk about, though, you have the RAC experience. Now you have the national experience. Yes, we haven't started talking about teams yet. The mock bracketing hasn't taken place yet and all that. But what have you learned so far? And I think you started in September, I think is the official time.
Yeah.
But, what have you learned so far with working with the committee that has both opened your eyes maybe or at least intrigued you?
Well, to be honest, I think when you are just secluded to your own school or own region, you think everything could be biased towards you at times. But I think being on the national committee, just in the short amount of time that I have, you really are I guess eye-opening to the fact that there's just so many teams out there that are great, and that it's not biased to certain regions. It's just that's the way the brackets go. That's the way the teams go. It's just I think the conversations. I'm looking forward to it just to see more in depth on how they go. But I think they really do care about making the best tournament we can make for Division III.
Sure.
And that's the whole. I think that's the whole what the committee wants is just the best tournament possible, and whether it may seem biased towards the South at times, but it really isn't.
Yeah, we try and drive that home too, and it doesn't seem to be understood even by some coaches' points of view. When you do look now at a more national landscape, you talk about scheduling and all that. Does it change your point of view? I guess it kind of does. You kind of hinted at that, but how has it changed your point of view? I guess, or more specifically, what of your view has changed?
Well, I think the hardest thing for teams in especially Texas and maybe the South, is just getting the common opponents. So when we schedule now, I really want to go play more. We have to play the South region, so I want to go play outside of Texas. This year we went to Emory and played a UAA team and an ODAC team, and I think that's important. Playing South region teams and South region conferences that are constantly getting at-large bids, and then also being able to maybe go up and play in the Northeast or play a couple of games that we've got to play 70% of our games in region, but going and playing teams. I think 2 years ago we went to DePaul and being able to play teams in Indiana, just that we normally don't get to. And I'm in a great school with a great AD who allows us to do that. And we've been able to invite some teams to play us. But I think that is the key, is just getting more common head-to-head opponents instead of just being stuck in our state and playing the same teams over and over again. We've got to be able to make a case for ourselves by playing those teams that are constantly being ranked, that are constantly being talked about.
You bring up an interesting point. I'm going to go back to what you said earlier. You talked about the ASC is probably only going to get the AQ, despite the fact that your record looks pretty darn good, ETBU's looks pretty good, and Mary Hardin Baylor's looks pretty good. I don't know all the other data, and not diving into that now, but the ASC feels like it's its own worst enemy.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons politically behind the scenes that I could talk about until the sun comes back up. The ASC refuses to change its model to allow for teams like yourselves, Texas Baptist or East Texas Baptist or Mary Hardin Baylor or whoever to have more opportunities. You have a very limited number of games you can play outside of conference. Thus, your SOS is not going to have that much impact, and you don't have a lot of results versus regionally ranked opponents. Can you bring this perspective of being on the rack in the national and come back to the conference to try and drive home that this isn't working?
Oh, without a doubt. And I will have to say our conference in the last, I think the two or 3 years, we've changed that model. We are actually being able to play. I think this year I had 7 or 8 non-conference games, which is huge.
Certainly an improvement, yeah.
Yeah, I know when I first started at UT Dallas, we maybe had 3 non-conference games, so that's where we were hindered. But absolutely, myself and Matt Wallace, who is our rep for the RAC in the South, that's what we preach to our coaches and to our administrators who are in the meeting, is that we have got to leave these games to where we can, especially the teams that want to compete on a national level or feel this is their time. We've got to have opportunities to play outside of the state of Texas.
How do you deal with the schools, and I know there's a significant number of them, who don't care? And I mean that literally. They don't care what the top teams want to do or what the ASC looks like on a national level. They're just trying to fill 25 games. They have absolutely no interest in trying to be competitive. They just want to provide 25 games, and that ends up being enough of a number that can sometimes thwart other plans.
Yeah, you just at the end of the day, you just have to hope that your team is doing what they need to do. You can't control how they're going to schedule. You can't control their motivation behind what they're doing. The only thing I can control is, putting our advice out there as far as conference scheduling, and then doing what I can with my schedule and my team to get us in the best position possible in February. Sometimes that we'll run into that, and our conference is spread out where we have a couple of teams that's hard for them to get 25 Division III games. But at the end of the day, I can't control it. I can only ask them. We have to do what we're able to control, and that's just our scheduling and making it the best. And I tell our girls every year we're going to play a tough non-conference because I want to compete. I want to be there at the end of the year in a conversation to get an at-large if we haven't won the AQ.
Imagine if it was D1 where the conferences determine if your out-of-conference schedule is good enough for the conference's image in the anyway, I digress. This is D3. We're not going to expect that.
No, that's never going to happen. That's okay. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, and I look forward to hearing what your thoughts on this as you move forward into the rankings and all of that stuff. Certainly, early on here, we're not going to get much. I'm not trying to get much information. We don't know how things will progress, but I look forward to talking to you more down the road. On the flip side, you doubled down in your national responsibilities and your off-the-court responsibilities this summer. You're now on board as a board member of the WBCA. We should point out this was a decision made before Christy Thomas-Cuddy left Emory, so we would have had 4 members from Division III. Unfortunately, we're back to 3. Right. But what was your drive to join the board for the WBCA?
This might sound a little cheesy, but it's always been a dream of mine to serve the WBCA in that capacity. I've gone to the conventions and I've been a part of every, going to the business meetings that, not everybody goes to, just trying to be involved any way I can. I've looked up to the women before me who have served in this role. So it's always really just been a goal of mine to, basketball has given me a lot in my life, and I just want to give back as much as I can, and I feel like serving on the board is a way to do that. I was surprised when they called me. I was not expecting it at all. They just, Christy was going to become the vice president for the WBCA, so that left open the legislative chair, and it's not one that it's not voted in. It's one that's nominated by the Division III at large, and then supported by the president. So that's just kind of how it worked out for me, which has been, amazing. I love it. Dream come true for sure. So I'm just excited to be a part of it. I was at the first meeting in July with everybody, and I was a little bit overwhelmed because you're sitting in the room with some big-time D1 coaches and, ones that you see on TV and you analyze, and you just got to remember that you're in that room now. You're a part of that circle, helping the game grow and helping other coaches that are going to come behind me.
One of the things I've noticed, and we've talked a little bit on the show, is how much the WBCA has turned towards Division III to some degree. I always felt like Division III was an afterthought with the organization for a number of years, and I could be wrong, but it felt that way. And obviously we've had a change in the guard with the CEO and Danielle, and we'll hear from her on the Marathon show this year once again. But how much is, you're now being at that table, as it were, and how much of Division III's voice is now being heard because of that change in the guard?
Yeah, I think it's, I don't know what it was before, but I can just tell from my experience, I have felt the shift. I have felt, just as a regular coach before I was on the board, I have felt them be more inclusive in as far as our conversation and what's important to us. The president, they go to the D3 championships. They want to know our opinion on things. And now being a part of the board, you can definitely, we're part of committees. We're part of the other organizational breakdowns that they have. I think we're important. I really do. I think the game of college basketball, whatever level you're at, is important to the WBCA. They care about every single one of their coaches. It doesn't matter if you're in the Power 5 or if you're NAI, JUCO, D3, high school. They just want to help coaches, and I have felt that. It's a very exciting time to be a part of the WBCA and to serve on the board, because I feel like our direction is headed in the right way.
When you talk about now being on the board and responsibilities and stuff, what do you hope to accomplish as an individual with your time on the WBCA board and the head?
Man, that's a great question.
Thank you. I randomly come up with them.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, I honestly just I would love an opportunity to learn from the coaches that are there. I think they all have great experience. It doesn't matter, our D3 at-larges have been at their universities for many years, and just picking their brain and picking the D1 brains as far as, being the best coach I can be, being the best person I can be. It's not even an X and O's kind of thing. It's more just how can I become a better coach for myself, for my players, for my family. That's what I want to get out personally. Professionally, I just want to continue to grow my university's recognition. I think we're still a really young team, a really young school, and not a lot of people know about. Grow our conference in the same regards, and then continue to push Division III. I was a Division III athlete. I love Division III, so just getting that word out as far as it's great basketball at our level. Mm-hmm. I think that's misunderstood sometimes, and so just continuing to push those things.
What do you hope the WBCA can do to continue to support Division III, or in some cases, how can not even continue to support, but how can we do things maybe even better? Not that it's not good. I'm just saying, what's the next evolutionary step here in helping Division III at the WBCA level?
I think continuing to do what they're doing, supporting your show, having the segment that they have, just making it known that Division III is a great option for some student athletes to play at. Just continuing and maybe educating the coaches of the high school level, like this is a great opportunity, and I can especially see it in our region. Everybody wants to chase the D1 scholarship, but sometimes that's not the best option for everybody. And just getting more education out about what Division III is about, and that it's a very competitive level of athletes, not even just basketball.
What do you think is the biggest challenge facing the WBCA?
Oh. Geez, you're rolling with some questions today.
Don't expect this on the show any other time.
I think, I'm just going to say where the future of our game is going to go. Mm-hmm. I know being in some conversations right now, we're talking about technology and how that's going to affect our rules. Just kind of what that next phase of women's college basketball is going to look like. I thought we've had some major game changes in the last 2 years, that have changed the way our game looks. So where's that next step? Are we still moving forward? Do we still have things we need to change to make it look a little different? Is there a technology that we're going to embrace? I think that's really just the future of our game is the biggest question. Like, are we happy where it's at, or we still need more changes?
Interesting. Well, I appreciate you taking time to talk about all that. Before we let you go, we do have to ask you our 9 questions that we ask all coaches, though. So if you don't mind having a little fun, these are supposed to be off the top of your head. You're not supposed to go in depth with them.
I'm not sure y'all want to know these, but okay.
I may not, and that's the risk we run. But they're the same 9 everybody else has asked, or everybody else is asked, so we get good differing answers, so it's fun.
Okay.
All right, so favorite thing, I think we know this, about coaching, especially in Division III.
My student athletes, hands down. I love the women I work with. I think UT Dallas, we get a unique student athlete, and I love every single one of them. They brighten my day. I tell them all the time I hate off days because I don't get to be around them. I don't get to see them. So yeah, I enjoy my girls.
Yeah, they're thinking, oh, Coach, we love the off days.
I know they really do. I know they do.
And we won't go into why. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Oh. Right now, it's my office. It's a disaster.
I know the feeling.
And the sad thing is I blame it on being the season.
Yeah,
but it's really
do too.
a disaster all year round.
Yeah, same here. It's actually better in season because I need half of it.
I wish I could say that.
Well, half of it needs to be on camera. I can't show you what it doesn't look like on
right.
camera.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure my assistant would say the same thing.
Yeah.
He hates my office.
There you go. We'll get to that in a minute. Favorite rule or nuance in the game?
I really did not enjoy it at first. I did not like the quarters because I have been around the 20 minutes for so long.
Yeah.
But just with the experience, having gone through it 2 years now, I've really have started to embrace it. Like, I really do like it. I like that break. We can treat it as an extra timeout, especially when we have a player that is playing a lot of minutes. It gives us a chance to rest her without taking her out of the game. So I've started to enjoy that. And recently, we've really liked the advance rule because we've needed it.
I saw another example last night of why I don't like that advance rule.
I'm sure. But when it favors what we need,
yeah,
I love
of course.
it.
I know coaches just like, I hate this rule. You know what? This is great. Can you move the ball up? Thank you.
Right.
I like the quarter rule because the reset of the fouls. We're not just spending the whole half at the free throw line. What rule would you want to see either added, removed, or changed?
Ooh. I'm on the fence with the reset of the non-reset of the 10-second backcourt. I don't know how I feel about that one yet. I'm not a big presser, so I like to have it reset, if it goes out of bounds. I can see the advantage if we do press. I really like the men have gone to the 20-second reset on a kickball.
Yep. Kickball and foul in the front court.
Yeah, I would like that.
Yeah, I like that one too. Any pregame ritual or superstition?
I used to be obsessed with rituals and superstitions. Like, I even have a rule, no one can wear a sweater on our bench because I feel it's bad luck. But this year I've just kind of tried to throw that all out the window and not stress, our job's hard enough. I don't need to focus on what we're wearing.
Sure, I can understand that.
That's kind of I've tried to been a little bit more easygoing this year and not worry about any of that stuff. So that's kind of been, I feel like that's been my go-to. Hey, I'm not being superstitious, but I really am.
I'm going to watch next game and just see if somebody's wearing a sweater on the bench.
My dad's the only one that can get away with it, just because, and I say it's because it's a sweater vest.
Perfect. And we're going to get to him to finish this whole segment off. Craziest travel experience, and out of Texas, I bet you got a few.
Oh yeah, is one of my first couple of years at UT Dallas. We were traveling from San Antonio. We had actually just played Shriner, so Kerrville is a little bit further away, about an hour from San Antonio. And it's normally, I feel like it's maybe a 6-7 hour bus trip. We got a lot of we got a lot of ice that evening, and we ended up coming back home, made it back to campus 4 p.m. the next day.
Oh.
So we had left that school at 10 p.m. So that was it. And I remember pulling off the side of the road. We had to stop, just because no one was moving on 35.
Yeah.
Spent a couple hours in an IHOP. So, yeah, that was an experience. So now when my team, whenever they complain about just an easy trip, 3 or 4 hour bus trip, I'm like, oh, this is nothing, guys.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a story.
Yeah, exactly. Preface this one by saying one of your assistant coaches is your father. How would your assistants describe you as a coach?
I think both of them. I think my dad and Natalie, my full-time assistant, would both say I'm pretty easygoing. I really love what we're doing. I love our kids. I love, everything about our university and staff. Pretty easygoing, but I still think demanding at times. There's things that we want done, things we want done the UTD way, and we won't sacrifice those things. But at the end of the day, I think they just, easygoing, love what we're doing. At least
sense.
I hope that's what they say.
Exactly. Well, don't worry, we're not asking them. What do you tell recruits to get them excited to commit to Texas Dallas?
One is academics. Our school is phenomenal as far as what we're doing educationally. There's just a lot of really cool things happening on our campus right now, from our engineering to our school of management. There's just lots of opportunities for them to be successful when they graduate, and that's the whole point of going to college. So that's really what we try and get everybody excited about.
Cool.
What we're doing basketball-wise, we definitely want to sell that as well, but we don't harp on that. It's really, to us, it's about the education, what they're going to do in 4 years when they're done playing.
Yep, that's certainly the most important thing to be in reality. And when you retire, because all coaches do, what do you hope people remember you as a coach?
I really just hope that they remember how much I love them and how much I appreciated their time at UT Dallas. I'm a big believer that these players get 4 years. That's it, and we want to make those 4 years the most enjoyable time of their life. Once they graduate, they're in the real world, paying the bills. It's not as much fun. College is just supposed to be fun, and 4 years that you're going to remember, and that's really what I want. I want them to be able to look back on their time with me and with our university, saying that was the best decision I made going there. I made great friends, great relationships, and Coach really loved me and took care of me while I was there.
Wonderful. It's not part of the questionnaire, but we'd be remiss not to ask you before we let you go. Your dad is the assistant, or one of the assistants you have on it. That is a unique situation in any way, shape, and form. But what's it like for your vantage point to have your father alongside you?
It's been one of the greatest things in my career, to be perfectly honest. My first year, he didn't help me. Wow,
that was really nice of him. Jeez.
Well, I don't know why. It was nothing we ever talked about. But after every game, we would go and talk in the stands. And he was a coach, and I grew up with him being a coach. And you know how coaches are. They like to give you feedback and information even when you don't ask. And we would talk about the games, and there would be moments I'd be like, oh, that would have been a great thought, a great idea. So the second year, I was like, Dad, I would love to have you on the bench because I think you bring things I don't think about, which is what you want out of an assistant coach.
Right.
And I was like, but here's the only kicker. I was like, if you're going to do this, you have to know I will tell you no, and you have to be okay with it.
Good parameter.
And he was like, okay, it's fine. And I love it. It really is. There's times where, I'll go home for Christmas, or even I get an email from him after every game, things he's thinking about, and it always starts with boss. And it's just kind of cool. It's phenomenal to be able to spend this time with him and doing things we both love. And, I grew up with him teaching me the game and teaching me to love sports and be competitive. And it's just neat to share this experience with him in that way. And one of the things I grew up is just trying to make them proud, make my parents proud, and I feel like I get to do that with him sitting next to me.
That's cool. That is really cool. Well, Coach, appreciate you taking all this time to chat with us.
I appreciate you guys. I really do. You do a great job of promoting Division III, and that's what we need from our game. So thank you for everything you do.
Absolutely. We have a tradition on the show. We always give the guest the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuning in?
Oh man, you and these questions.
That's what I do.
No, just continue to watch the South region. I think we've got some really great teams down here, not just my conference, but across the board. So I think we've got some sleepers down here that hopefully in March will be making some noise.
Awesome. We will keep an eye on them, I assure you. Thanks for taking the time. We'll talk to you soon.
Great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Polly Thomason joining us here on the Hoopsville Hotline in the WBCA Center Court. Great interview, wasn't it? Polly Thomason joining us. Forgot to ask her. We had her on a couple of years ago after a game that she played in the NCAA tournament that had been played on a Sunday. And we had a conversation about some questionable uniforms. I should have circled back with her on that, but we will do. I have a feeling we'll get a chance to do that with her at a future date. We will make note and do it accordingly. A great interview with Coach. Appreciate her taking the time. Of course, also thanks once again to the Women's Basketball Coaches Association for their efforts to help us as well. The WBCA Center Court segment every Thursday night here on Hoopsville. Next week, we got a great one coming up as well. That's kind of a bad tease, but trust me, you're going to want to tune in next week. I'm going to take another break. When we come back, we'll switch back to some men's basketball. We'll jump out to the west and talk to Whitworth. They've lost 6 straight to Whitman. Doesn't mean they aren't playing some darn good basketball. And as one who hasn't totally been sold on them yet, I get to learn a little bit more about their team. Matt Logie joins us in a moment. And still ahead, Marymount's women's basketball coach. You're watching Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and ABC studios. More Hoopsville after this.
Great moments are born from great opportunity.
That's what you have here tonight. That's what you've earned here tonight. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
My name is Marcus Walker. I was All-State, won a state championship, a high school All-American, and played college and pro ball. I played because I love the game. I grind to be the best. I sweat because I put in work. I'm strong because I believe. When I want to bring it before game time, I come to the house that college basketball built, the CBE. No matter your skill, take it to another level. Elevate your game right here at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center.
Something I discovered in myself is that if I have a goal, and I can accomplish it.
It's a well-rounded experience.
At a Division III school, you primarily a student athlete, so the school is really shaped around you developing yourself as a complete individual.
It helps a lot that you have a family with your team that can guide you.
Cheer for the stumbles. The he shoulda had that's. And the tears that linger. For in those moments, greatness lies. There, you will find the provoked, the determined, the unified. It's in those moments that champions are born.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying this Thursday edition of Hoopsville. If you got questions for us, you can always tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. We're also on Instagram where we promote the show primarily. That one is at D3Hoopsville as well. Should point out, I've been a voter in the top 25 for a number of years, and I've been very open about it. I forgot to put my blog together. I didn't forget to put my blog together. I tried to put my blog together this week. Crazy week I wasn't expecting and didn't get it put together. I apologize. We will make up for it next week. At this point, no point in putting it up there. Maybe at the end of the show, we'll quickly run down who I have in my top 25. One of the teams I have that I have a lot of questions about is Whitworth. I have them at 21. I had them last week at 21. I saw them play Whitman. Didn't blow me away, but that doesn't mean I'm not missing something. Sometimes the best way to educate myself, as you may know on this show, is to talk to their head coach. So I got a chance earlier today to talk to their head coach to find out, okay, Matt Logie, what is it about your Pirates squad that makes everybody else want to vote for you? At the same time, how good is this Northwest Conference race? They are 13-2 overall, 5-1 in the conference. And we get to talk to Matt Logie earlier here on the show. Now joining me on the City of Salem Hoopsville hotline, it's the head coach of the 13-2 Whitworth Pirates. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville, sir.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I feel like it's been a while since we chatted with you guys. Things have changed a little bit in the Northwest. You have a pretty good foe in Whitman now that seems to be leading the conference. You guys almost feel – does it feel different to be the other team in some degree?
Well, I think Whitman's really risen to prominence, obviously, the last couple of years. I think and I think Coach Bridgen would probably agree, for a few years they were really trying to get over the hump with us, and we were, kind of the top of the food chain in our conference and even number one in the country at one point. And when they got over that hump, they've really made the most of it, and they've just continued to rise. So it's a great rivalry. It's been a lot of fun to be a part of. I think it's made our program better in striving for such elite company, and we feel like if we can get past Whitman with the way that they're playing these days, then we can beat just about anybody in the country.
Yeah, certainly an interesting dynamic out there now in the Northwest. And you're right, it did feel like Whitman was struggling to get over that hump, and now they have. I think they've won now 6 straight or something along those lines with you guys. I got a chance to watch the last one online thanks to streaming and being on my big screen now. It's kind of fun and enjoyed that game. It was an interesting battle. First half, I wouldn't say Whitman shot very well. You guys seemed to control things a little bit more, seemed to be dictating the tempo, at least for most of that half. Second half, Whitman started to put its foot down, and it felt like a real chess match at that point.
Well, I think we were pretty pleased with the way we executed defensively in the first half, especially. I think with about 9 minutes to go, we were up 55-51, and Kyle Roach got his fourth foul, and had to come out of the ball game, and that really changed the dynamic for us in terms of experience on the floor, and Whitman, like you said, kind of put their foot on the gas at that point and made a push that we didn't really have an answer for. So. I feel good about the first 31 minutes of the game, and obviously you got to put it together for 40 plus.
Yeah. The other factor too is you weren't playing with Jordan Lester, who is certainly an important guard for you guys, a junior, and we should point out this is pretty much an underclassman team. But Lester being the junior, he's missed a few games. He wasn't in that one. I also felt like his presence not being there, hurt. Especially with Roach in foul trouble. A, Roach maybe doesn't get in foul trouble. You've got another option. But B, Lester's not there to help with that as well.
Well, there's no question, that Jordan's loss has impacted definitely that game and kind of the dynamic of our team. He was really, coming into his own in our program. I think his athleticism and his ability to finish around the basket are really, really elite. And in a game like that, where you're going to be up and down and facing pressure all the time, it's not just the fact that, he's not out there. It's also the fact that, if he's handling the ball more and Kyle Roach is handling the ball, then that pushes, other guys into catch and shoot situations and just different parts of the floor where with Jordan out, you've got some more inexperienced guards, kind of learning the ropes, and that's part of the process and learning to play against Whitman. The guys that have stepped into the fold for Jordan have done a really good job for us. Garrett Hull is a junior college transfer, and Isaiah Hernandez. But that was their first time in that environment, and so it was just a little bit more than we were ready for at that stage.
Sure. Of course, the game was at Walla Walla, which is the environment to some degree, and in their home court. The next game comes back to your place, and certainly things will now play out in your favor in some degree in that sense. But is this a Lester situation where you guys this is the rest of the season that you're just going to have to adjust and adapt to? Or do you hope that Lester can get back, that you guys now, as a result, would even have more depth?
Well, I think his absence has certainly created more depth for us and a great opportunity for Garrett and Isaiah to show what they're capable of, and we have a lot of confidence in those guys. Kyle Roach has been playing phenomenal basketball since Jordan has been out, and that's really helped kind of buoy us. Jared Christie is a very capable all-conference type player as well. So we feel like we have enough bullets in the gun, so to speak. But certainly when you add Jordan to the mix with this group, looking at next year, we don't have a lot of questions in our backcourt and a group that is highly talented. We don't expect him to be back this year.
Okay.
But the good news is he'll probably get a medical red shirt and have a chance to come back for 2 more years. So
well, and that's the thing. Next year, and we talk about the this isn't really a senior laden squad. I think you've got one senior listed on the team, and it's Joel Gabriel, who's played in 8 games. This is a young team. I feel it's almost different. I'm used to Whitworth always having a couple of senior leaders, as it were, whether they're transferred in or have been coming through the program. This is a program, it feels like you guys don't have that, and as a result, the following years could be the most fascinating, including your battles with Whitman. I mean, both teams are set up for years to come here.
Yeah, we're really excited about both our present and our future. I mean, last year we graduated Kenny Love and Christian Gerlina, who were 3-time all-conference guys and all-region type players. in their own right, and that was a year after George Valley kind of carried that torch for us. So this past off season was a kind of a big turning of the page for us, and we brought in 10 new guys, and they've really adapted well and bonded very strongly, and I think that's why we were able to hit the ground running early on this season with some of the success that we've had. So we're really excited about, not only where we're at right now, but what we're building for the end of this season and looking ahead into the future as well.
I've been public about the fact that I haven't been voting for you guys, though I put you in the last couple of weeks on my poll near the bottom. And it's that youth that I just don't have answers for, that I'm trying to grasp to some degree and figure out what makes them tick, I guess would be the best way of saying it. So this feels like a great experience here. I mean, almost a year where losing Lester is good because some guys are going to get more experience and more playing time as a result. And that could also make this team pretty dangerous at the end of the season.
Well, no question. That's definitely the positive way of looking at it, and what we're trying to do. With an adversity like that, it creates an opportunity for somebody else, and that's really what adversity is. It's just opportunity disguised, and we've obviously run up against a team that's been ranked number one in the country and only lost to the last two national champions in the last couple of years. But someone brought to my attention the other day that since we lost to St. Thomas in November of 2014, we're 86-4 against the rest of the competition. So, we don't feel like we've gone down or come back to the pack. It's just one of those situations where Whitman has really risen and kind of become the cream of the crop, and we're trying to take that next step as well.
We should, before we talk about the more about the conference and your schedule, Ben College should be pointed out. He's a sophomore averaging 17.5 points, the same as Kyle Roach, who's a junior. And Jared Christie's your other in double figures. He's a senior, but he's got junior ineligibility, 11.5 points a game. Of course, Lester was averaging 15.5. And, of course, we also should mention Ben Bishop, 8.2 points a game. I have a feeling that might climb. You actually do have quite a few weapons offensively on this team that can certainly get it done if necessary.
Yeah, I think what we lacked in experience this year, coming into the year, we made up for in talent and athleticism. And so, I wasn't sure how quickly things would come together, but I've told a few people, I think if we can stay healthy, obviously, from this point forward, and continue to grow, that our team next year has a chance to be the best team we've had. So, we know that it's a process, and you've got to build that every day. And, we've got a couple big opportunities on the road this weekend as well.
Yeah, this weekend you'll be taking on Willamette and Linfield on the road, which is certainly a challenge in itself. But the conference seems to be getting a little bit deeper now. It used to be the Whitman and Whitworth show, and everybody else was just there. On the women's side, we've been used to it a little bit deeper. But Puget Sound seems to have a pretty good squad together this season, though sometimes the record doesn't necessarily jump out. But they're 11-4, 4-3 in conference. Linfield's 11-3, 5-1 in conference. Willamette's 8-7, 3-3. And even Pacific's 8-7, 2-4. The conference seems to have gotten deeper since last year, maybe even counting last year, which has made it a little bit more challenging on trips like this weekend to Willamette and Linfield.
Yeah, no question. I think the rest of the conference has improved, and that's made kind of the trek run through conference play more tenuous. And Linfield and UPS and Willamette are all right in the middle of playoff contention right now. I think coming out of non-conference play, the NWC was, I think, 7th overall in winning percentage non-conference wise, and has really improved some of the scheduling patterns in terms of trying to get more Division III games across the board, and is finding success with that. So it's great for our conference. Ultimately, we know that our conference will probably be collected into a pod in March anyway, but it's one of those situations where if you can get tested more often in January and February, it's going to make you better for March.
Your schedule on the whole season's been somewhat interesting. A lot of D3 teams on the schedule, including a trip to Hawaii to play a couple. I know the trip to Hawaii is a lot easier than a trip to the East Coast. But I still feel horrible for you that you had to go to Honolulu. You'd played North Central, which at the time seemed a little off. Now they seem to have gotten their feet under them, so that win starts to look more and more impressive. You also played Colorado College in a game that I think Colorado College not as good as we expected, but still got a chance to play them. Wheaton tripped you guys up, and Wheaton seems to trip a lot of people up while tripping themselves up. Calvin's not the same team I think everyone expected, and so it's been a mixed bag. But how has your out-of-conference schedule, you think, helped you?
Well, I think, going into to that trip to Hawaii, obviously we knew that the North Central was an established team, a veteran team, and a great barometer for us. So we were excited to be able to compete there the way that we did. Our game the next night against Arcadia was actually very competitive as well. In a very different sense, very athletic. So we've been able to play against some different styles. Wheaton has, one of the best guards at Division III level that I've seen, and really, played a great game here and caught us on a night where we probably weren't at our best, and has gone on to have great success in their conference, which is no surprise. So, I think our goal in non-conference scheduling is always to try to schedule the most competitive teams that we can, and we think that our schedule this year has done that.
It's conference schedule take two now. You've gone through the first half of the round robin. Now you start the second round robin with this trip to Willamette and Linfield. Actually, you finish off, I should say, the first round with this trip, because you'll finish with them at the end of the season at home. Right. How do you kind of get everybody focused here? Because now everyone's seen you twice for the most part, except for this trip. And everyone has got a previous game under them, so there's memory. And how do you thus get the guys kind of focused on, especially the younger ones who haven't been through this as much, focused on understanding, hey, these guys now know us. This isn't about surprising them with anything. It's about execution. Well, I think, as everyone does, you're looking at your previous contests and looking at your execution, areas that you didn't execute the way you would have liked, or things that they may have done well, that you can learn from and adapt to. I don't think we've ever really been a program about surprises. We kind of do what we do, and so it's just about execution. And for us, we're trying to really build that on the defensive end of the floor. We've got inexperience in the sense of no seniors, but we have juniors that have been around the block, and by the time you get to the second cycle of conference play, our expectation is very high with our level of discipline and execution, and that's what's going to help us be successful down the stretch here. Well, it's fascinating to see how this has evolved. The Whitworth battle has always been good. We've always enjoyed that. But it seems like it's taken on a whole new point of view now, and I can't wait for that game coming up back at your place on February 6th. I think certainly it'll be a different conversation in Spokane. What's the goal, though, at this point? Is this to go out and try and get them and possibly hold home court advantage, or is it the best position yourself for a chance to get into the NCAA tournament and do some damage there, as they kind of did to break through a couple years ago? Well, I mean, our number one goal each year is to win the Northwest Conference regular season championship. That obviously sets you up for home court advantage in the conference tournament, and we've been fortunate to recruit at a level and build teams at a level where we think every time we step on the court we have a chance to win, and so that's what we do each night out, and it's not really about March right now. It's about Willamette on Friday and Linfield on Saturday, and when we get to Whitman at our place, obviously we'll have a great opportunity in front of us. So we got to take care of business prior to that, and hopefully create those opportunities for yourself. But this has become a rivalry that I think is more respected now, because both teams are accustomed to being where they are, and I think for a long time, even when we had the upper hand,
a little bit early on. People probably didn't give their due to Whitman, in light of the success we were having, and it's just kind of a double-edged sword.
Sure. Yeah. No, I could see that argument. That's a pretty fair argument. Is there anything about this team we're not seeing that is so important?
Well, I mean, I think the thing that will really come to light as we come down the home stretch here is just the experience that we gain in light of Jordan Lester's absence, and then additionally, we've had two other rotational guys, Kevin Krosno, who broke a bone in his wrist in early December, who's been out, and C.J. Johnson, who was a part of our rotation last year, who hasn't played all year due to injuries sustained in a car accident earlier in November. And so, those guys are just now kind of reaching the point where they can get back again, and that will give us a little added depth and experience. And so we're really excited about being able to add that size and experience to the group we've had the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's certainly fascinating to say the least. Look forward to watching more of your games. Obviously, a big test this weekend coming up, as we mentioned, at Willamette and at Linfield before we even get towards Whitman for the second round. So, Coach, I appreciate you taking the time, as always, to talk about the Pirates. Someday we will get out there to see games, but we love seeing you when you come to Vegas as well. Look forward to your return trip there. In the meantime, we always give coaches the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuning in?
Well, just looking forward to a great home stretch here. I think the Northwest Conference has a really great brand of basketball, and I would encourage those in the Midwest and East Coast to tune into some of these games, even though they're late at night, and check in on the Whitworths and Whitmans and Linfields and UPSs of the world, and really excited to attack this home stretch.
Very good. Coach, good luck the rest of the way, and we look forward to talking to you down the road.
Thanks a lot.
Absolutely, Matt Logie joining us here on the City of Salem Hoopsville Hotline. Again, the Pirates on the road here, and then they've got a good chunk of they repeat everything, so half their games the rest of the way will be at home after this weekend. Now joining me on the City of Salem Hoops. Well, that thing repeated by accident. Sorry about that. Thanks to Coach Matt Logie for joining us. Whitworth, without Lester, I think it's a different team. How good are they? Well, it'll be determined. By the way, he pointed out, watch games on the West Coast. If you feel, listen, it isn't that bad. Women's games will start around 9 o'clock. Men's games around 11 o'clock, I believe, give or take. I've been watching them on Amazon Fire app. A lot of conferences in Division III, specifically if they happen to be with Stretch, but I think some others are starting to expand this as well, have apps that you can download on Roku or Apple TV or Amazon Fire or whatnot. I watched Whitworth on my 46-inch big screen TV in my living room. It was awesome. It's great how much technology has moved forward. But I will stay away from having the conversation about not being able to watch games on demand. We'll get to that, I'm sure, another time. All right, we're running late. This show's going to go well into overtime here. We still got another interview to go. Marymount women's basketball coming up next. We will discuss with them about defense. Ashley Rogers has got another pretty good team on her hands, but what can they do defensively? Great article on D3Hoops.com this week. We'll talk more in depth with her coming up. You'll listen to Hoopsville. Oh, and by the way, after the interview, we'll wrap up the show. No break in between. You're watching Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and ABC studios. More Hoopsville after this.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III.
I did receive academic scholarships. Just being involved on campus, being a leader, all those things combined kind of get me recognized. It's a great experience for me.
My name is Marcus Walker. I was All-State, won a state championship, a high school All-American, and played college and pro ball. I played because I love the game. I grind to be the best. I sweat because I put in work. I'm strong because I believe. When I want to bring it before game time, I come to the house that college basketball built, the CBE. No matter your skill, take it to another level. Elevate your game right here at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
In any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all.
It's on us. It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us. All of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com. We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com. We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com. We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com. We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. We're going into overtime here as we're just ticking into finishing off 2 hours and sneaking into another. We won't go much more than 30 more minutes, I don't think. I actually don't remember how long the next segment goes for, so I probably shouldn't say that tremendously. But at the end of the next segment, a reminder, we will then wrap up the show. A lot to talk about. We're not going to get to all of it. We will be back on the air Sunday, 7 o'clock Eastern time. And don't forget, the marathon show is coming up on Thursday, February 1st. On Sunday, we will recap whatever happened at the NCAA Convention, but we'll talk more about that later. Back into the Mid-Atlantic region, back into women's basketball, a team that is just outside the top 25 and probably should be there is Marymount right now. Remember, they went all the way to the Sweet 16 last year and gave St. Thomas a heck of a game out there in St. Thomas. This is a team that brought back 4 of those 5 seniors, and they're off to a tremendous start. Just beat Christopher Newport recently in the Centennial, in the Capital Athletic Conference, in their final season in the Capital Athletic Conference. What to make of the Saints? Well, great article written in the Mid-Atlantic Region Report this week about the defense. Gave me the perfect conversation to have with their head coach, Ashley Rogers. She joined me today, and really, it's a great conversation, a little bit in depth, about what makes the Saints tick. Now joining us on the City of Salem Hoopsville Hotline, it's the head coach of the Marymount women, Ashley Rogers. Coach, thanks for taking the time, and hope you're well.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Again, 14-2 on the season. You're having a tremendous season. It seems to be a little bit synonymous. 20-plus win seasons the last 2 years. Always have been competitive. But it feels like this year you guys almost feel like you have a chip on your shoulder or something. There's something on another level from the outside.
I don't know about a chip on our shoulder. I think that we we're just trying to pick up where we left off from the previous season. We had 4 of our 5 starters returning this year, and they were excited. They were excited to be back on the floor. They were excited to mentor and lead our freshmen who really came in and picked up quickly what we were trying to teach as a coaching staff, but also did a really nice job of following the example of our upperclassmen. And with my group this year, they're very competitive, especially that starting 5. So, any opportunity, the next game they're really looking forward to, whether conference or non-conference, they're just excited to be out on the basketball court.
And we've got to remember, this is a team that went, to the Sweet 16, for lack of a better description, had a competitive game against St. Thomas, at St. Thomas, we should point out. And, of course, beat Albright and Guilford along the way, a really good Albright squad certainly as well. Yeah. And then, as you said, bring back 4 of the 5 of the starting group. It seems to me, I don't vote on the women's top 25. I don't do regional rankings or anything like that. But it seems like maybe everyone's just still got questions. If you were trying to sell yourselves, what would you be selling to convince people you're just as good as that team we saw make that run last year?
Well, I think we've proven it with some of the wins that we've had this year. We beat Newport when they were 6th in the country. We beat a very competitive Mary Wash team. We beat Albright, who's had some big wins this year. At the end of the day, we just try and focus on what we need to do next for our next game. And what I can't control, and I tell my girls this, we can't control what others think or how they vote. We just have to go out there and play our game. And, we want to focus on our game goals that we believe will bring the results that we're looking for. And, hopefully along the way we can pick up some new fans that enjoy our style of play and want to follow us some more.
And we'll talk about the style of play in a moment. One thing I notice is your schedule is full in a traditional year of some heavy hitters. You had Randolph-Macon, you had Albright, you then had Hopkins on the schedule. You then, obviously, conference play includes Salisbury and York, but you also played Stevenson and Catholic. And as we mentioned, Christopher Newport, granted, conference game with the CNU as well. Some of those teams are a little, let's say, off their level. And by off their level, we're not talking like they're below 500. They're still above 500, but just not as powerful as we've seen in the past. Do you think what do those games have presented to you, though? They're still competitive, but have they been a different style than you've been used to with those opponents?
I think with every game, whether we win or lose, we try and say, what can we learn from this game? And I would agree. I think we're seeing some different looks from traditional teams on our schedule. Randolph-Macon gave us, our first loss this season, and it was. They're a tough team. Mm-hmm. They don't have a lot of depth, but they're the kid in the middle, Williams. She presents a lot of issues for teams, and I thought that we didn't come out and play the way we are capable of playing. We didn't start playing the way we were capable of playing until that fourth quarter, and it was just too late. We got it within 2, and we couldn't get it any closer with, less than 30 seconds to go. So, for the girls and for the coaching staff, it was one of those things where you have to come and play for 40 minutes, and it was unfortunate that we had experienced that right off the first game, but in some ways, I think that's what has made us better, and we were able to go on that run that we did right after. Yeah. We had another bump in the road with Catholic, but, they're a quality team, and we're talking about 2 good teams that play in difficult conferences as well. So, we're all facing difficult competition within our conferences, and I try and schedule really good teams out of conference so that we're ready to go when we play, any of the teams in our conference, because I feel like at any given night, one of them can bump another team off. So we don't really take anyone for granted. Last night we were playing Penn State Harrisburg, and we prepared for them just like if we were playing CNU.
It's interesting. You look at some of these games, and you kind of hinted at it. You've got some different looks. Obviously, Hopkins has a new coach. Stevenson has a different look about them. York is sneaky. At one point they were 6-4, and I think a lot of people thought they were off. Now they've roared out to an even better record and are certainly competitive. And at the top of this conference, once again, is a dogfight. Marymount, Christopher Newport, York, Mary Washington, even Frostburg is kind of just knocking on the door a little bit. Salisbury's off, but still competitive. Mm-hmm. You talked about it with Harrisburg. You cannot keep your guard down at any point in time.
No, not at all. And especially when you go through the first half of the season going undefeated. I mean, we have a target on our backs. And, I think that, when you're talking about York and Salisbury, I think, though, when we play some of these teams, we take them out of the way that they're capable of playing. And but then you look, and York turned around, and they played CNU really tight the other night. And, they seem to be hitting their stride really well. And we've got to go back to them at their place. So, I think it's just kind of those things where, all teams are going to go on runs, and how consistent can they be with their runs. And, we were really fortunate in the first half of the season that we were able to stay consistent.
How important is home court? I've always said Marymount's got one of the more unique home courts. Now, one of those items that I've always shook my head at has apparently been solved. There used to be speakers pointed straight into the duct system, which always cracked me up. But I always thought added to the challenge, because it made it a kind of an echoey building that was hard to deal with. But you mentioned you got to go back to Christopher Newport here. York has to go back to Christopher Newport. How important it is thus to win your home game and at least have some kind of control of things before you do have to go play that somewhat out of control away game?
I think everybody wants the home court advantage. But I think at the end of the day, the teams that are able to be consistent and stay successful don't look at it whether they're, at home or on the road. It's just another game, and it's the next game, and it's whether it is home or it's away. You got to focus on what's your game plan and what's your game goals, and you can't let the surroundings affect how you play. We have a lot of tough games coming up, but we're not going to use it as an excuse whether we win or we lose. When
the Christopher Newport game, win by 10. A game that I believe Porter was out. I don't know if she was out or not for that game. She definitely was. She was. Okay. It certainly changes their team a little bit, but they're still competitive. What did you learn from that win that you guys have been focused on since?
I think we learned that, they came in, they didn't have Porter, who's, one of their starting players, and she's a very good player. But Christopher Newport is very deep, and they have a lot of threats. So, they have a couple players that they can step in to fill that spot. I think for us, it was the mental side. I think we learned that knowing that she wasn't going to be playing that day, we couldn't say, oh, well, this is going to be easier for us, because it's not. It's always a really great game when we play Newport, whether it's at their place or at our place. And what was really nice to see was when Newport went on their runs, that the girls found a way to come back and go an even stronger run the next time. For us, we're just constantly focusing on our defense. Our defense is going to create our offense. We're trying to find ways to frustrate and take our opponent out of their offense. So I was really proud of them in that they were able just to not get too high or get too low when Newport made their runs, that we were able to kind of stay even, and they stuck to the game plan for the most part for 40 minutes.
Looking at your team, we just saw the article around the region earlier this week, well written about the defense. Interesting comparison to the Bobby Knights of the world in the sense of that, discipline, but you don't strive it in the same way. You get it from a team executing and learning to execute and driving home the execution. And defense for you guys is that execution. Looking at the latest NCAA stats, 19th in scoring defense. At the time we talk about this could change by the time it airs, but 19th in scoring in defense, 30th in scoring margin, 14th in steals, 15th in steals per game at 14.5. 7th in turnover margin, 10 plus between your opponents and yourselves, 13 in forced turnovers. It really is, from your sense of it starting at the defense. And again, a game like Christopher Newport and others, I can see where this can be fascinating. Granted, I think more points scored in that CNU game than I would have expected from two defensive teams. But where does the defense start, if that makes any sense? Like, where's the key? Where's the click point for you guys defensively?
Oh, we focus a lot just on specifically. It starts with us with the on-ball defense. Their point guard. I think that I have one of the best on-ball defense players around with Tiffany McQueen. She can just really frustrate the heck out of the other point guards, and it's pretty fun to watch when she's turning them and she's just able to pick their pockets and go the other way for a layup. But not just her, but with all of them. I mean, we start with just one-on-one drills, and we build up every practice, 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, and we're just focusing in on how can we take them out of their offense? How can we make that ball handler uncomfortable? And from there, as I mentioned, we just keep building up. Now we're adding that second defender, then we're adding that third, and we just constantly are going and focusing on and working our rotations. Who's going to be help? Where should we be in rebounding position when the shot goes up? Limiting them to one contested shot. All of those things. To me, it's something that has just been ingrained in me since I was a player and playing for Coach Finney. So I could probably do this in my sleep, I feel like, at this point. But the girls know walking into the gym, like, they have a pretty idea of what our practice is going to be like that day, because I'm just a big believer in reps. And the drills may be a little bit different, but it's not going to be much. And I think that giving them that consistency and understanding what they're going to expect when they walk into the gym just mentally prepares them for the practice. To a lot of the degree, you're continuing the Marymount tradition, and obviously that's easy to say when you're a player who played under Bill Finney, and of course the defenses that he brought to the table. But at the same time, that doesn't mean every player who coached or played under somebody has the same mentalities. But it seems like you do, and it seems like you've taken it maybe to another level and kept that tradition that Marymount's going to be that stingy defensive team no matter who's coaching. Well, I mean, I think I have a lot of invested because I did play for Marymount, and I do want to keep the tradition alive. And I think that my players have bought into that. You walk into the gym and you see going basketball banners, and that's the goals that we talk about. I mean, they want to be a part of that history. They want to be able to walk in the gym after they graduate and say, hey, I contributed to that. And that's really special to them, and that really means a lot. And I was just very fortunate with I've been very fortunate all my life with my coaches in that I've had coaches that have kind of been very similar in teaching the fundamentals, stressing defense, and stressing the importance of what it means to be on a team and how to be a team player, and that everyone has a role, from your starting point guard to your last kid on your bench who's been injured all season. Everybody can bring something to the table. And I think that what Coach Finney did when I was a player, he was a very difficult coach to play for, but it's one of those things, it's after the fact that you realize, wow, I mean, he did so much for me. I mean, all the time that, goes into coaching, it's not just showing up for games and practices, but it's all of the preparation that's put into it. And that's what I'm trying to instill in my girls now with our practices. It's the preparation, and it's the things that we're doing in practice that is going to prepare you for the games, so they don't seem as difficult. Or when you are put in pressure situations, you've already experienced that in practice.
When you talk about who's the help, who's the slide, who's in what position at what point, and when the ball does whatever, people talk about a basketball IQ, but it seems to me you want players, or you get players, to be even more cerebral. That not only are they thinking about things that maybe they're not traditionally thinking about, like if the ball is 2 passes away, where am I going to be? But at the same time, it's almost an unconscious brain thinking exercise for them that they just know where to go? It's not about physical, it's about mental.
Yeah, I mean, I think that all of my players could tell you that their freshman year is very eye-opening. Some of them are deer in headlights because of how much we talk about having specific rotations where you need to be. And you can tell really quickly who are the overthinkers, because when they're trying to be on the court and the ball starts in one spot and it quickly moves the other, they're still standing in the same spot and they're just looking and watching. And then I blow the whistle and they look at me and they're just like, I didn't move, did I, coach? Nope, you didn't move at all. But mentally, their brain was just running. You could tell. And I think that's what's been the most fun about it. You know, at the time, it can be very frustrating for players. But I think that's what's been the most fun about it, to watch them grow from their, freshman to their sophomore year. Nicole Viscuso is the story and my example all the time. I mean, she came off the bench, occasionally got some okay minutes, and then she busted her butt the summer going into her sophomore year. But it wasn't just that individual attention on her skills and her fundamentals that she worked on. It was her needing her whole freshman year and then doing that in the summer and coming in that made her such an explosive player for us, such an impact player for us, because she needed that whole year just to really understand what the rotations were about, what it meant from being on ball to help to deny, all of those things. And you could just tell once she got it, she never looked back. And, then I've had other players who've come into the system like Tiffany McQueen and Leah Hurst, who came from really strong high school programs. And you can tell that they had coaches that had similar defensive philosophy as I did. And they came in with high basketball IQs, and they didn't really need a lot of time, and they kind of just jumped in. So it's interesting to see those different the backgrounds that when they come in and how quickly they're able to adjust, and then some who need a little bit longer. But, the players that stick with you and are willing to, stay with it and fight through it until they can figure out. I mean, those are the kids I want on the team. Now, taking a year, like I use Nicole as an example, she needed her whole freshman year. That's a long time, but I'm willing to stick with them if they're willing to stick with us, because I know the light bulb's going to go off and I know that they're going to get it. And once they do, it's really paid off for us, because, look at our last two seasons building up to now and where we are now. We're hoping just to continue and move forward with it.
You almost can't be angry at a player if you know they're thinking it. They just haven't gotten their body in gear yet. Like the synapses haven't gotten from the brain processing to the brain executing with the body necessarily. You almost can't get angry because you know they're thinking it through. You know that they're starting to grasp it. They just haven't gotten to the execution side.
Yeah, no, you can tell that they're really trying. And then when they come in and they want to watch film and they want to do some chalk talk, you can't ask for anything more with that. But, you feel a little bad because I just chuckle a little bit inside, because it's like, you're going to get this kid. You just have to trust me that at some point it's going to happen. It may not happen as quickly as one of your other teammates in your class, but it's going to happen at some point.
You mentioned the players. We'll mention them again. Hurst has 2.9 steals a game. McQueen 2.7. Gabrielle Haddad with 1.9. Nicole Viscuso also with 1.9, and Reagan Lower with 1.8. That's 5 players with practically 2 steals or more a game. You play a very aggressive defense. You get a lot of steals. You get a lot of hands in the passing lane. If you read the article, you guys are striving for a lot of tipped passes, as it were. But you don't tend to foul a lot, about 17 a game, which is the same as your opponents. And I know officiating in the Mid-Atlantic region is probably one of the more inconsistent I've seen in women's basketball. How are you able to execute such a tough, aggressive defense, yet not commit a ton of fouls?
Well, I think it goes back to, starting with that on-ball pressure. And if we can frustrate and, force the ball handler to maybe get a little out of control, dribble with their head down, that's where us working on those rotations and, finding those passing lanes, or at least as we have a game goal, we're striving for 45 deflections a game. If we're doing that, we feel like we're doing a really good job. We really work hard on keeping our hands off. We really work hard on walling up around the basket. The girls I think at this point they all should have towels with their own name on it because we keep towels in our hands a lot, just to try and, simulate that you got to keep your hands off. And when we say keeping your hands straight up, you got those towels in your hands, and we're working on our verticality and keeping those hands up so that we're not coming down when players, are getting close to the basket and going in hard for layups.
Yeah, that's the trickiest one. A lot of people think they're straight up, and in reality, you watch the video back and you see their arms break. That's a tricky one. You got 9 games left in the regular season before conference tournament gets started. 4 of those will be at home, 5 on the road. You got St. Mary's and Salisbury up ahead at home, then York on the road, Southern Virginia on the road, and then Christopher Newport on the road. That's just the next 5. Really challenging next set of games. Not only obviously the next 5 and the finishing 9. I kind of know what the message to the team is, but what is the goal here beyond just game to game?
Well, honestly, for us, it is just focusing on the next big game. And the next big game for us is Saturday at home against St. Mary's. We talked about, at the beginning of the year about our season goals, and they really don't change from year to year. But focusing on the next big game and hitting our game goals with, our deflections and the points that we're willing to give up, or we're going to work hard not to try and give up, I should say. Focusing on those game goals is really what we're trying to hit those marks in practice, and working towards. So we're really trying not to get ahead of ourselves and focusing on Saturday.
I know this has been a long interview, but I appreciate the time. Before we let you go, though, we should point out last year in the CAC for Marymount, it's got to be a little bit bittersweet.
It is, and I played at Marymount and played in the CAC, so I've got a lot of fond memories of it. But there's a new challenge ahead, and we're looking forward to that. But we're not there yet. I'm going to focus on this year.
That's why I saved it for the end. Coach, appreciate you taking the time. Fascinating insight on your team. And again, if anybody gets a chance, go read the article. As always, we give the coach the final thought. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuning in?
Dave, as always, thank you for all you do for us. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Coach. Appreciate it as well. Good luck the rest of the way. And I know we'll talk soon.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Absolutely. Ashley Rogers joining us from Marymount, and the team again off to a tremendous start. It's 14-2, 9-0, 9 games left in conference. Now joining us on the City of Salem Hoopsville Hotline, it's the head coach of the Marymount. It did it again. Can't get it figured out. We got a little glitch there. We'll figure it out. But thanks to Coach Rogers for joining me on Hoopsville earlier today. Appreciate her taking the time. Fascinating team there at the Saints. The CAC race, once again, even more challenging. York has come on. Christopher Newport's there. You can't count out Mary Washington. Salisbury not having as great a season as we got used to a few years ago, but still pesky. Hey, should be a good race. Should be fun to watch. Men's side, not as good a race, I don't think. I think York and Christopher Newport are kind of the top, and then Salisbury and then everybody else. But how about the drop-off from St. Mary's men's basketball, folks? Remember when they used to be synonymous with top teams in the Mid-Atlantic? Having a really rough season at St. Mary's. Don't know what's behind it, but just of note. All right, so we're wrapping up the show here. We got to get going and wrap this baby up because we are well into overtime and we need to get some other business taken care of. Don't forget, we'll be back on the air Sunday, 7 o'clock Eastern time, and, of course, back next Thursday, 7 o'clock Eastern time as well. Looking at the calendar, pretty much status quo, 7 o'clock. 2 weeks from tonight, though, it will be tonight, 2 weeks from today, will be the Hoopsville Marathon Show. Already, during some of those segments, putting some of our show together. We've already got some pieces in place, looking to get some more in place as well. That show will be a 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. show that is on February 1st, 2 weeks from tonight. That gives you a sense of how much time is only left in this season, folks. It feels like yesterday we started, we had a long amount of time. I feel like last week I said, there's a lot of season left. And yes, there's a lot of games left. But in reality, in 6 weeks' time, we're going to be in the neck deep with conference playoffs, and in 7 weeks' time, talking about who's in the NCAA tournament. It sounds like a long time, but in my book, I know it's not a long time out. Anyway, so the next few Sundays at 7 o'clock, outside of the marathon on the first, we're at 7 o'clock. Then on Super Bowl Sunday, we have traditionally done a show earlier in the day. I think this year we're going to change that, and we're going to move it to Monday the 5th instead. So that will be a little bit of a change in that plan as well. So no show on Super Bowl Sunday. And then right back to our normal 7 o'clock shows the rest of the way. I cannot stress enough to check out D3Hoops.com and the stories, that we've been putting together this week especially, but in general there have been great stories. If no one read the Kenny Doss story from Manchester a couple weeks ago, it's worth going back and reading. It's really worth it. I definitely stress that you go there. And the story about Claire Marburger, she reached out to us about this from Luther, who transferred from Central. Outstanding story. Please read it. All about clinical depression. It is worth your time, to be sure. Didn't mention this at the top of the show. Should have mentioned this at the top of the show. How it took us this long to mention it, I don't know. Benedictine and Texas Tyler are going to be applying to Division II. We got a break with the Benedictine story. They have been open about it, I think last April or something, or sometime nearly a year ago. They announced that they were going to be looking into the decision. Eventually, the Board of Trustees voted in favor of the idea. The student paper has one version of accounts saying that there's a group on campus who is against this. We have a quote from an official saying that there was a committee put together that endorsed the idea. We'll see what happens at Benedictine and, of course, Texas Tyler. Reached out to both conferences for comment and what is the future going to hold, as it were. We don't know yet. So here's the deal. If Benedictine and or Tyler are accepted, and there's no guarantees here. You might remember Mississippi College was denied entry, their first attempt at moving to D2. If their application is first accepted, that's the first step. And for every application, you need a conference. We were told, we'll confirm, Benedictine is the GLVC. I assume that Texas Tyler is the Lone Star, based on geography. I don't know that for sure. If their application is accepted, we will find out in early February from a list that is produced by the NCAA, along with maybe any other D3s we don't know about. They then go through a multi-month process of a site survey, investigation, and in-depth look at their applications, and lots of Q&A and all of that stuff. And then sometime this summer, my personal feeling is it'll happen probably in June. I'm basing that on the academic calendars and really budgetary calendars for everybody turning over on July 1. Doesn't mean it's going to happen in June. I'm just taking this as my own what if. I would assume by June we will find out if they are accepted to Division II. If that were to happen, those schools will then play a Division III schedule next year, but not be eligible for NCAA postseason participation, i.e. championships. The question then becomes, what do the conferences do? What does the ASC do? What does the NACC do? We've reached out. Nobody has given us a definitive answer to that, which is, I think, not surprising and maybe semi-surprising. I say not surprising because they probably aren't playing too much of the what-if game or going too far down the road until they know if the application has been processed or accepted, and really not even the application, but acceptance into Division II. But I'm also surprised because I would think you'd want a what if. Now, I don't know how much Texas Tyler has been telling the ASC about this. I do know the NACC has been well informed by Benedictine, so they've known this has been coming, as it were. So the ASC basically said, not prepared at this time to provide information about the University of Texas Tyler and its membership with the conference. The Council of Presidents is scheduled to meet during the NCAA Convention, which we know is taking place now, with several membership items on their agenda. When it's appropriate, the conference will publicly address developments regarding members. So we're going to have to wait for the ASC, not surprisingly, probably talking about it this week. As far as the NACC, we basically got a no comment. Really, they referred us back to Benedictine about conference questions. That didn't help us. We replied back that we had reached out to Benedictine and we were looking for conference questions that Benedictine had referred us to the conference about, and we have not heard back after that. So don't know what the NACC will do. Let's just say what if is they both stay in the conferences. They both play conference schedules, Tyler and ASC and Benedictine in the NACC. The question becomes, are they eligible for the conference tournaments? Who knows? There's no rule that says they can't. You can always have a backup plan. Remember the SCAC a couple years ago had a team win the conference tournament not eligible to go to the NCAA tournament because they were still transitioning to become a full Division III member. Well, as a result of that, Trinity, Texas went because they were the one who won the regular season, or at least were the backup to that plan. So I don't see either conference not being able to do that. You go ahead, let them play, let the student athletes play for conference championships, which I think is in their right. It doesn't mess anything up. And then should Tyler or Benedictine win a championship that gets the AQ or is used for the AQ, then have your backup plan, whether it be the runner-up, which seems a little odd. Who knows? Maybe it's a regular season champ. Who knows? The idea is that everybody still plays, and if you knock off Tyler and Benedictine, then the AQ is still in play. Who knows? We have not heard back. We don't know the status. But next year, no matter what, those two programs will play a Division III schedule. They will not have scholarships in place. It's almost like a transition year that a D3 student would do going up to a higher division to play and transferring. It's almost like they're transferring. They're kind of having this dead year. Then they enter D2. That's when they start handing out scholarships and the whatnot. None of the recruiting is affected, nothing. They would just be kind of a non-champion Division III school. Both of them, one of them, who knows? Neither of them. We'll find out in the summer. Again, more on the information, more story on our website, d3hoops.com or d3football.com or d3sports.com. We will certainly have more on these stories as they follow up. I have a feeling we'll get much more information as the process moves forward and keep everybody in the loop. Personally, I'm sad to see both of them go. You heard Polly Thomason say it in her interview today about Tyler. I don't know if the grass is greener. Mississippi College seems to be doing well, but we all remember McMurray, too, who absolutely failed miserably at this idea. We don't talk about Lincoln, or Lincoln's not discussed anymore on a national scale after they made their move. The moves from D3 to D2 have resulted in a lot of those programs disappearing off the radar for whatever reason. A lot of money involved. And personally, I'm going to miss Benedictine. They are one of the original Division III members. They didn't come in right when Division III formed, but they came in shortly after that. They founded the NACC. I think they've been tremendous for Division III, and we certainly know that they've been successful. Apparently, someone that feels that going on to D2 is a better idea. So be it. We'll see what happens if they're accepted, and we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Same with Texas Tyler. I think they're great for the ASC. I think there's a wonderful rivalry there. I think in Tyler's case, they're maybe thinking about moving on to D1. That's just my own personal gut feeling, just by the nature of things. I don't think Benedictine is. I think that's a strict D2 move that I think was really predicated by the GLVC being interested in having a member in the conference out of the Chicagoland area. Just how I've read the tea leaves. So anyway, Benedictine and Tyler moving on to D2. If their applications are accepted, and then if the NCAA/Division II accepts their membership. Remember, a lot of people apply for Division III. It doesn't mean they get accepted either. Speaking of which, we'll keep an eye out for any new members for Division III. We know there's a few. I know there's a few in the pipeline, as it were. We'll see if those applications are processed and completed, and find out if they're accepted. I have a couple I got my eyes on to see, and that could help change some of the landscapes of conference shakeups that we've been seeing as well. Top 25. I mentioned I didn't get my blog out. I will get it out. A couple things of note. I moved Wittenberg well up to number 3, right behind Whitman and WashU, respectively. It's actually a triple W, or quadruple W's, or if you want to count 5. I have Whitman, WashU, Wittenberg, Whitewater in my top 4, and Oshkosh at number 5. Then I have St. John's at 6 and York at 7. I saw York in person, knocked them down a couple spots, one, to make room for some of those other teams. Also because I think York is good. I really do. I think they're a top 25 team. They're a top 15 team. I even feel that I have them too high at 7. I don't know if they're that good. I want to see some more. They're, again, a top 25 team, but I don't know if they're 7th best. But they're also still winning and are undefeated, and you got to keep that in mind. River Falls I have at 8, MIT at 9, then Augustana. MIT is going to drop. There's a good debate going on the boards about Augustana's placement versus Illinois Wesleyan's placement. One of the arguments I said was my spot between 10 and 25 is interchangeable. I don't know what any of the responses were since then. I have not had time to read the boards. But I have Augustana at 10. Honestly, Augustana is a 15 to 17 team for me, but nobody behind them I feel comfortable being ahead of them, and I got to fill in the spot. So Augustana's at 10. Hamilton's at 11. Hamilton feels high at 11. Williams is at 12. Williams feels high at 12. Wesleyan at 13, same deal. John Carroll at 14, just lost to Baldwin Wallace. I feel high with them there. New Jersey City at 15, I feel more comfortable around 20. Emory's at 16. I entered them into the top 25. I think I put them a little too high. I think they're good, but I don't know about 16. Middlebury, I really like Middlebury. I think they're a really good team. They're coming off of a 3-5 stretch where they lost. I don't know what to think. I think they're better than the rest of the NESCAC, but they're not playing that way. I've got them at 17. Platteville at 18. Platteville's playing well. Well, then Stevens Point goes and knocks them off. Ohio Wesleyan at 19. I'm struggling with the Battling Bishops right now. They're 11-5. I saw what I saw in front of me. I saw how they played against Whitman. I saw how they played against Ramapo. They are not playing the same way, and I do not know why. I need to dive into that and figure out what's going on. Swarthmore at 20. I like Swarthmore, but they got to beat a Franklin and Marshall team, plain and simple. Now, they will get a rematch. It was at F&M. I get all of that, but Swarthmore can't be dropping these kinds of games. And they had a battle with Haverford as well. I think they at least got past that one, if memory serves. I'm quickly double-checking that. They're 15th in the country. You can see where I'm different. I've got them at 20. They did get past Haverford, but in overtime. No, that shouldn't have been a game, Swarthmore. And so I'm a little torn with Swarthmore. Whitworth, I have 21. We've discussed it. Baldwin Wallace at 22. I like Baldwin Wallace. They haven't been blowing me away. The win over John Carroll gives me a little more confidence. I have Nichols at 23. Almost dropped them. They had an injury with their point guard, who I think is one of the best in at least New England. He's back. They still barely got past their next opponent. I'm a little worried about the Bison. I think they got two of the best players in New England, or at least in the conversation in New England. And so I like them, and I like how they play. But some of these results aren't making any sense. I have Emory and Henry at 24. I like what they've been putting together. I think wins over Transylvania are now making their stock look better. I think people are underselling Transylvania to some degree. Then I have Illinois Wesleyan 25th. And even looking at it now, I feel like I have Illinois Wesleyan too low. But I also have had trouble arguing for Illinois Wesleyan because they've had some results that I just can't grasp, can't put my head around. Now, they may be playing the best basketball now. From what I've seen, I think Augustana is still better. I got another week, or in this case, 4 days, to figure out if maybe I want to change my mind on that. I have made a lot of drastic moves in my roster, or in my top 25 this week. Wartburg was 15th, gone. I had somebody else high up. St. Norbert at 18. They lost to Monmouth. I was done. I think I was looking for an excuse. I like St. Norbert. I know some would argue their results. I like their results, but the loss to Monmouth, I kicked them. Skidmore was 1-2 last week. Kicked them from 19th. But I dropped Middlebury from 3 to 25 last week. I moved them back up thanks to at least a better week. It's crazy in the top 25. It's hard to grasp. I'm sorry I didn't put a blog together this week, mainly because I knew there's a lot to talk about. We'll put one together next week for sure. But right now I got 4 W teams at the top, maybe 5 if you count Wisconsin, Oshkosh. Maybe W's is the key to this. Ryan made a comment. We could be talking about 7 different teams in the WIAC for top 25. And now we start crossing the bridge. Okay. Are they all good and should be top 25 teams? Or are they only good and they shouldn't be top 25 teams? I don't know the answer to that. I personally think the WIAC's really good, and some of those teams deserve to be top 25 ranked. But when they're losing games on all of that, it just makes it a muddy mess. Someone asked why Stevens Point shouldn't be ranked at the top 25. Well, nothing against Stevens Point, but from my point of view, I've seen them in person. They're not a top 25 team, but they've gone out and beaten everybody in the conference to start the conference. They're 11-5, 5-0 in the conference. They lost 3 straight to close out 2017. Lost to Augustana, it wasn't close. Lost to Wartburg not looking as good as they were, and then lost to Whitman in a game that certainly fought for, and I appreciate that, but I that's Whitman's defense. But they've beaten River Falls, Stout, La Crosse, Eau Claire, and Whitewater. Now they got Platteville coming up. They got Oshkosh coming up. They got La Crosse coming up. Interesting barometer here. To close out the month, they'll also have Whitewater. Can they keep going? So going into this, they were 6-5. Now they're 11-5 and 5-0 in the conference. Not necessarily a top 25 team, in my opinion. But if they keep winning in the conference, then they're a top 25 team. And then you look at everybody else and wonder if they are a top 25 team. It's just absolute crazy. I got 4 teams in the NESCAC. That doesn't feel right either. The top 25 is crazy this year. and getting crazier. All right, we're well past into overtime. We got to wrap this show up. We'll be back on the air Sunday. We can certainly talk about much more. This is definitely one of those scenarios where you almost feel like lengthening the show because there is so much to talk about in Division III. But to be honest with you, we don't have the time to lengthen the show. We're going to take a several-day break. Be back here on Sunday, 7 o'clock Eastern Time with more Hoopsville. Specifically, we will talk about the Northeast, the Atlantic, the South, and the Central regions, and, of course, the NABC Coaches Corner, and Ryan will join us back for our Top 25 conversation as well. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate all of our guests who appeared on the show. Thank you for joining in. Drew asked, have your Top 25 blog out this week at all? Yeah, I'm just not going to get the blog out this week. I've got too much on my plate tomorrow. I will do what next week will do is I will present you what my ballot was this week and move forward from that. Every once in a while, I just can't get it out. This week was a weird week. I didn't expect it to be. It just ended up being that way. So I apologize to any of you out there who look forward to it. I think us voting later on Monday and me making an effort to do something with the family on Monday got me out of sync into Tuesday. I had some stuff I had to do, and I just didn't allow me to get it done. Anyway, I want to thank everybody who did take the time to tune in. I want to thank our guests, too. Of course, James Wagner, the Assistant Commissioner of the CSAC, for joining us and talking about what's going on at the convention. Bobby Hurley from Stevens, Chris Huffman from DePaul, Polly Thomason from Texas Dallas, Matt Logie from Whitworth, and Ashley Rogers from Marymount. Of course, also thanks to all of the SIDs who helped us out as well with all the content that we needed. Already working on Sunday's show. Looking forward to that. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us hoopsville@d3hoops.com and join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. We're also on Instagram at D3Hoopsville as well. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back Sunday night, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. You've been watching Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and ABC studios. This show is copyrighted. Any use of this must be cleared through me. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hope you enjoyed. Talk to you Sunday night.